Welcome to this meeting of Assembly Committee on Education for the 2023 legislative session. Secretary, will you please call the roll?
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Present.
Assemblyman De Silva.
Here.
Assemblywoman Hanson. Assemblywoman Hardy.
Here.
Assemblyman Koenig.
Here.
Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch.
Here.
Assemblyman MacArthur. Assemblywoman Mosca.
Here.
Assemblywoman Taylor.
Present.
Assemblywoman Thomas. Assemblywoman Torres.
Here.
Chair Bilbray Axelrod.
I am here. Thank you. We are all here, so this is going to be a fun day. Welcome to the audience here in Carson City. It looks like we have a big crowd in Las Vegas as well. And for those of you who are joining us over the internet or our YouTube stream, first take this opportunity to silence your electronic devices. I'm doing it right now myself. If you wish to testify, please make sure that you sign in so we just have a good record. We know this is going to be a lively day, so we just would like to get an active number. So please sign in and give your business card to our committee secretary if you intend on speaking. When testifying, I think you guys know this now, but you come up and you turn on that microphone button, clearly state and spell your name. For the record, if any affiliation, if you're representing someone, just so we have a clean record, and then turn that microphone off when you are done speaking. We should have handouts for everything over there. We asked for about 20 copies, and if you could get those to our committee manager by 1:30 the previous day before committee. We expect courtesy and respect in this building and in the building down south. We might not always agree, but we can still be nice to each other. So thank you for that. Committee members will be using their laptops to view handouts and other documents. Please don't view this as a sign of disrespect or inattention. Finally, we are going to have to limit our testimonies today. We have two robust bills, so we're going to do 20 minutes. So 20 minutes in support, 20 minutes in opposition, and 20 minutes in neutral. So depending on how many people we're going to have speak, we might go down south for 3, up here for 3, phones for 3. So just bear with me. It's a little choreography that I've been working on. So we're going to try to make as many people be able to speak as possible. But you are always welcome to submit your comments on the record. In fact, we have a robust discussion already on Nellis, if you see in both support and opposition. So if you submit those comments to, I will get them up for you on Nellis as soon as possible. So with that, let's get started. Today we're going to hear two bills. We'll begin with the hearing on Assembly Bill 285, like in the agenda, and then we will hear AB 124. I'm sorry, 194. Sorry. I'm not feeling well, but I've taken many COVID tests, just so everyone knows. So if I cough, believe me, it's just an old-fashioned cold, I believe. I will now open the hearing on AB 285. This measure revises provisions governing school safety and student behavior. To present this measure, we have our Vice Chair, Taylor. We have Dr. Norris Dupree Jr., President, Transformation Therapy and Behavior Consultation, and Dr. Paul LaMaruca, Chief Strategies Officer, Office of Strategies, Washoe County School District. Please begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon to the esteemed committees of the most excellent Committee on Education here in the legislature. Thank you. It's such an honor to be here to present this bill to each and every one of you. For the record, Madam Chair, I am Assemblywoman Angie Taylor, Vice Chair of this proud Vice Chair in this committee, and I proudly represent Assembly District 27 in Washoe County. And as stated by the Chair, I am presenting Assembly Bill 285, and this bill revises provisions governing school safety and student behavior. So what I'd like to do is to give you a little bit of background information. When it comes to schools, there's nothing more important than safety. Between external threats, right, and internal ones, there is a growing national conversation surrounding this issue. And this has had a direct impact on everyone in the school community, including our students, our parents, and our educators. And part of that conversation necessarily includes pupil discipline. As you know, Nevada currently uses restorative justice practices requiring each school district to establish a plan to provide for the restorative discipline of all of their students. However, I've received feedback that the current system has created some unintended challenges, which have in turn opened the door for safety issues in our school. When you combine that with teacher and staff shortages, low retention of teachers, increased stress and workload, the bottom line is our schools and the people in our schools are suffering. And something needs to be done. I asked for some information just to kind of give us a little bit of background in the two largest districts in our state, and you see some highlights on the screen. I also added with some of the exhibits. You should have a more robust, if you will, list of some of the things that the Clark County School District, some of the information they shared in terms of their numbers, things that are going on in their district. You look at from incidents of violence, approximately 8,300 incidents of violence were reported to the Clark County School District Police in the 21-22 school year, and that's an increase of approximately 1,300 calls as compared to the year just before COVID. You look at weapons on campus in the 21-22 school year. In fact, I got some updated information even sent to me even on this morning. And for the 21-22 school year, there were 424 behavior reports filed that were due to the possession of a violent weapon. And as a whole, there were over 500 issues, period, called in. And so far for this school year, as reported between August and February, there have been 234 weapons that have been confiscated in the Clark County School District. Schools, 16 in elementary schools, 50 in middle schools, and 168 in high schools. If you talk to our educators, look at a survey, according to approximately 25% of Clark County educators, overall educators participate in the study. 68% do not feel safe at their school. 25% report having been physically abused by a student, 63% report being verbally abused by a student, and 50% report that they do not receive the support needed to address disciplinary or behavioral issues at their school. There is support at the Clark County School District and across our state. We do know that. Between our educators, mental health professionals, administrators, they all implement the multi-tiered systems of support, or MTSS as we call it in school, in the Clark County School District. But with the shortage of 400 current educator vacancies and only 778 school counselors for over 300,000 students in the Clark County School District, wraparound services, these support services for our students are limited and often hard to come by. If we take it to the north to the Washoe County School District, and you compare to those numbers that are very similar, you take a look at the incidents of violence that's on campus, more than 61,000 students and over 100 schools in the Washoe County School District. For the 21-22 school year, there were approximately 2,080 major behavioral incidents in schools, classified as battery, violence to staff and students, and threats of violence to staff and students. And there were more than 5,000 events that were classified as mutual fights. Considering weapons on campus, for the 21-22 school year, there were 299 major events involving possession of a weapon, of which 20 involved weapons classified as dangerous based upon Nevada state statute. And thus far for this school year, the 22-22 school year, based upon the first 110 days, there have been 24 instances in which students have been removed from their zone school and placed in an alternative setting, 14 based upon possession of a dangerous weapon, 4 based upon battery, 4 based upon habitual discipline, and 2 based upon threats of violence. Asking educators in the climate studies, the Washoe County School District calls it a climate survey, 87% of educators generally feel safe at school. 37% report extreme work stress, 89% report generally positive staff and student relationships, and 50% report that disruptive classroom behavior occurs regularly, and 41% report that they have mental health concerns, and that there are mental health concerns that are prevalent among students, and then 37 report that a lack of respect to staff is totally prevalent. So again, support is needed. Also in the Washoe County School District, there is support that is being provided again through a multi-tier systems of support. There's mental health support provided, social emotional learning practices, trauma-informed practices, restorative practices, and behavior supports that are provided at each tier based upon student need. But again, this is being negatively impacted by significant staffing shortages, and they impact the delivery of such support. So why are we bringing Assembly Bill 285 before you? Because really what it does is just a couple of things. What does this do? It modifies the establishment and implementation of restorative justice. Doesn't replace it at all, but it modifies it. It revises, it makes revisions, I should say, to progressive discipline based upon restorative, it revises it to progressive discipline based upon restorative justice. It allows for the removal of a pupil who commits certain infractions, drug-related, violent behavior, weapons, and so on, that's spelled out in the bill. It allows for the removal of that student, but it requires a plan within 48 hours of the removal, and you'll see some of those. There's some preliminary work after chatting with some stakeholders over the last day and a half or so since the bill got referred on Tuesday and then came right out. There's some conceptual amendments. You have that as an exhibit as well. That includes a couple of these. It also allows schools and districts to consider reinstatement of a student who's been expelled at a minimum, but after a minimum of 1 year. Apply for reinstatement after a minimum of 1 year, and then it makes conforming changes for charter schools and for the university school for the profoundly gifted. The reality of it is this: restorative justice, it's a big phrase. It means a lot of things. It is defined in statute, but the narrative around it means a lot of things to a lot of people. And this bill is not intended to be all things to all people. It is not going to address every single aspect of restorative justice that may need to have another look. I've gotten a lot of information about a lot of things that aren't even included in this bill and weren't intended to be so. But what this bill is intending to do is to find the balance, because there's some facts. We know that disproportionality is real when it comes down to the disciplinary practices around students of color, and in particular young men of color, especially black and brown students. That's a reality. That's real. Those are the facts. That's data driven. But we also know there's a fact that instances of violence, of inappropriate behavior, and of weapons are not just present, but they're growing. And so we must do something. So to further explain some of the difficulties that we have seen with the existing practices and policies that we have in place that we're seeing in our schools, I now would like to turn, with your permission, Madam Chair, turn things over to my co-presenters, beginning with Dr. Norris Dupree.
Good evening, Madam Chair. Thank you for this opportunity to speak with you. My name is Dr. Norris Dupree, D-R-N, capital N-O-R-R-I-S, capital D-U, capital P-R-E-E. And I am here. I am a marriage and family therapist. Also, I had license in school psychology and licensed alcohol and drug abuse counseling. My experience, I have been working with what we call population for children and families, specifically at risk for approximately 25 years. Currently, I have been working with the schools in the Washoe County School District, working with individuals with the emotional needs. It is very apparent at this point when we talk about restorative justice that there are some things that need to be considered. And some of the things that need to be considered is that Dr. Angie Taylor so eloquently talked about, is that some of our individuals are underserved, our schools are understaffed, and particularly under-resourced. That means that a lot of individuals lack the training. And why is it important that I say these things is because with restorative justice, one of the things that we understand is having a systematic approach to dealing with our children, which means there are red flags that we see. And according to the red flags that we see, we need to implement interventions related to those red flags so that we can help sort of detract or deviate from the path that the kids are taking. But when those things don't happen, of course, what begins to take place within our school is there's entitlement. And sometimes with this entitlement, things begin to take place between staff and the children. And so it is just very important as we talk about this bill is that not only are our kids traumatized due to what has taken place in the pandemic, but also our teachers also are traumatized. And so we need to have I guess just compassion for both. So when we talk about restorative justice, it is so important that behaviors that we consider detriment to the teaching environment is addressed immediately. And so this is what needs to happen and what needs to take place, because it is so important as we move forward to restorative justice. But I want to also say this. Our kids, when we talk about restorative justice, they need a way that they can come back, and they need grace. And so restorative justice offers them grace to come back and be initiated back into the schools. And so I'm just here to talk about restorative justice and why it's needed right now in the schools.
Thank you, Dr. Dupree. I've asked Dr. Paul Lamarca to join us. As our chair said, he is the Chief Strategies Officer in the Strategies Office at the Washoe County School District, and has overseen really the whole implementation of restorative justice as it came to the state as well as to the district, and has really been an advocate, been a champion, and it can talk a little bit about how this shows up in schools, and really because you were here at the beginning, talk a little bit about the beginning of it in the district and those things, and I think that would help bring us a little bit up to speed and how this bill may help.
Thank you, Dr. Taylor. Chairman Axelrod, for the record, Paul Lamarca, P-A-U-L-L-A-M-A-R-C-A, Chief Strategies Officer with the Washoe County School District. Restorative practices came to us in the 2019 legislative session through Assembly Bill 168. And what I think restorative practices did is strengthen our systems to create climates that optimize student learning, create a community in which students are valued, they're included, they're welcome, they're engaged. We are about student learning. I think one of the points I'd like to make, because I know you're going to have lots of questions, is I don't see this bill as about discipline. I see this bill as about safety and student learning. It's not about exclusionary practices versus restorative practices. Those things have to work in combination. There are times when students do things that create a safety concern for others, for staff, and for themselves. And in those instances, removal is necessary. This is short-term removal, and this can be longer-term removal, and this can be expulsion. As Dr. Norris Dupree just said, in every one of these instances, whether it's a 2-day suspension from a school, or it's a 90-day long-term suspension, or it's a full year out, the student is coming back, and we want them back. We want to welcome them back, and we want to create a system in which they can be successful. This is where restorative practices plays a critical role. So again, we emphasize prevention. Restorative practices like positive behavioral intervention supports, social emotional learning, that helps set that groundwork. When students don't respond, we intervene, we provide planning, we provide additional restorative practices. And then if in those unfortunate situations in which behavior escalates and we have a safety concern, we have to act. And again, that's for the safety of the student who is the offender, as well as all the other kids in the classroom or at the lunchroom and all the staff in the building. So those are just some quick comments. I'm happy to answer questions with the direction of Dr. Taylor.
Thank you, Dr. Lamarca. I'm sorry, Angie Taylor again for the record. If you would like, Chair, I'm happy to take us through the bill, the high points of the bill and of the amendments, and then. Okay, thank you. Okay, so really, if you look at just the high points, if you will, of AB 286, it removes 285, excuse me, it removes the requirement that each school district establish a plan to provide for restorative discipline of pupils, and require instead that the Board of Trustees of each school district establish a plan of progressive discipline based upon restorative justice. That's the key piece. It's not just progressive discipline, but it's based upon restorative practices. We don't want to leave out restorative justice. And then within that plan, the Board of Trustees should also include those disciplinary practices. Additionally, the bill removes the requirement in general that at a public school that they must provide a plan based upon restorative justice before suspending or expelling or removing a student from a classroom. In the bill that, as presented, as introduced, you see it says that they don't have to do that any longer, but as amended, if you look at really, I'm saying they're ongoing conceptual because I'm still talking and working with people, but you'll see that originally it was replacing restorative justice with progressive discipline. That's in blue, and then I put in green. It really should be progressive discipline based on restorative justice throughout. It's in there a couple of times, and 285 as submitted, it should be throughout 285. That progressive discipline, but still based upon restorative justice. And then you'll also see that in AB 285, it provides for the, it talked about the suspension, expulsion, and permanent expulsion of certain pupils. There was that 11-year-old minimum, maximum, maybe minimum, as stated. And we'll talk a little bit more about this. I know when my colleague, Assemblywoman Hanson, comes forward. My recommendation in this bill, in this amendment, is that. Okay, my recommendation is, I'm not a ventriloquist. It really wasn't. I'm not trying to.
You say?
BPS, is there a mic on? Okay, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Is that there is, as both Dr. Dupree and Dr. Lamarcus stated, there is that opportunity for reinstatement. There is that grace. There is don't give up on the child. Now, they need to be out for a minimum, the way the conceptual amendment reads, for a minimum of a year. They can apply for reinstatement so that if a child is 10, 11, 12 years old and they do something, they bring a weapon to school, which would call for expulsion, then they have an opportunity, if they go and get restored, which is the whole idea behind restorative practices, that they'll be able to, now, probably not at that same school, but to be able to enter back into the school district at some point, should they meet certain criteria and so on. Again, this is to not give up on the child, to give them an opportunity for reinstatement under certain circumstances. And then it also says that when a child, it gives permission for the schools when you don't have to have a plan before you suspend a child, as the current legislation states, but an amendment to the bill will say that, but you should have one within 48 hours. For an example, if a child, if a pupil has a major infraction, it's battery, it's a big fight or something, and they really should be suspended, the existing legislation says you can't suspend them without a plan. As submitted, the bill says, it just leaves it at that. But my conceptual amendment behind this says, but you should do a plan within 40 hours. We don't want to send kids home and forget about them. We do want them to be restored and have an opportunity for restorative practices to occur in whatever way is appropriate based upon the level of those infractions. So Madam Chair, that's going through the highlights of the bill and also those conceptual amendments. So if it is your pleasure, we stand ready to answer questions. Thank you so much.
And thank you, Vice Chair, for that, and thank you for being here. I've said we're going to have robust conversations. This is a very emotional issue to a lot of people. I'm wearing my flower from the previous Tyrone Thompson, he was quite passionate about this. And before we begin with questions, I would just like to just tell a little bit about my personal experience with it when I met with Tyrone in 2019, and he showed me the pictures of the kids who had been expelled. And it wasn't overwhelmingly black and brown kids. It was all black and brown kids. So I think we have to look through a different We can't look through our myopic lens that we sometimes look and really figure out what is the best way. So I appreciate your work on this. I know we'll have another bill after this, and then we're expecting the governor's bill that we are actually going to be introducing as a BDR at the end of this meeting. So thank you for your work. And with that, I will open it up to questions. I'm going to start with Assemblywoman Torres.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Vice Chair, for the presentation and your work around this topic. And, you know, I will note, too, that I've had the distinct honor of working on this piece of legislation now for multiple cycles, looking at restorative justice law. In 2019, I was proud to co-sponsor Assembly Bill 168 alongside Assemblyman Thompson. And then in 2021, I worked on some legislation regarding the appeals process, regarding suspensions and expulsions. But I know that there were a couple NDE bills that dealt with this topic as well. And now we're coming back this cycle, and we're continuing this conversation because I think we recognize that there's still issues, there's still problems that we need to address in order to have safer campuses in our schools. And so my specific question is on page 3 of the legislation. Interestingly enough, this is a part of the legislation that I was the sponsor of, and now we're coming back and having a conversation. I'm criticizing some of my own work, right? But I think that it's a conversation that needs to be had. You know, having the honor to be in this body and also an educator, I think that there's been some very serious issues with the training for administrators and for educators. And I know that this is a conversation that you and I have had as well. And so I think my recommendation and something I would hope that we're open to on this legislation is that there's stronger language regarding the training for restorative justice practices, both for administrators and like superintendents, but then also for our educators and support professionals that are working with our students. I know when it was rolled out originally in 2019, because it was rolled out right after that cycle. That year when we went back, we were just told you can't suspend and expel. That's what was told to educators. And obviously I'm sitting in this, room knowing, no, that's not what the bill did. That was never the intention. So I'm just hoping we can get some stronger language on that.
If I may I go directly to the Assemblywoman, Chair? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Assemblywoman Torres, and I do want to add that you have been really a guide to me in this as I've jumped into this work. The first meeting I had on this was with you to talk about this, your experience in bringing this forth originally in the 2019 session, and then as an educator, being in the classroom. So I will say this, as I said, I've had, in the last day and a half, I've had a lot of conversations with stakeholders, and I will say training has come up a lot in that. It wasn't on the radar, so to speak, but it has come up a lot in that. So as I continue those conversations with stakeholders, and I'd certainly love to pull you in as we need to look at what can be done with that, because I think that's one of those things that comes to the surface. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes, I too have heard that over and over and over again. Next, we will go to Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you all for being here. You are all clearly advocates for our children, and I appreciate the work that you're doing to try to get this right, because that is what we need to do. And as a teacher, I have seen the violence in our schools firsthand. I have seen the consequences of this legislation, as well as the stress and anxiety that's going on in our society at large. Dr. Dupree, you mentioned trauma, and I really appreciated you bringing that up. I think we have many materials from teachers talking about the trauma that they are experiencing on a day-to-day basis. The first letter I'm looking at is an elementary school where the teacher has to yell clear because a kid is freaking out and throwing desks and harming children, and daily that class has to evacuate, and those kids are not able to learn while that child is having some very serious emotional trauma. And so I just wondered, can you speak to the trauma that is ongoing for both our students that are witnessing this and our teachers that are experiencing it in the classroom?
Just state your name again for the record.
Dr. Norris Dupree. Madam Chair.
She said we can go directly.
Okay, we can go
I was
directly.
trying to get him trained. I was trying to get him. Don't go there. Yeah, he's good.
When we talk about the traumatic experiences that happen through the classroom, remember, some of our kids, our teachers are being exposed to vicarious trauma, which means that when you are in an environment of constant trauma, individuals that bring in specific behaviors to school, that it has an impact on you. I can talk about that. Some of our teachers, I have experienced it, talked them through it, have experienced panic attacks, major anxiety attacks, and et cetera, just working with our children, especially those that have behavioral problems. And so the trauma is an ongoing thing. And what begins to happen, especially in schools, is there is a synergistic effect that really takes place. It's a reactionary effect. An example would be domestic violence. Someone who's constantly exposed, and now they start walking on eggshells, asking themselves, when is the next incident that's going to happen, because they just sort of feel out of alignment and feel like they just don't know what's going to happen and what's going to take place. And this does have an effect not just on our teachers, but on our students and the individual, because the individual sometimes is struggling with the school. So as we talk just about trauma, it's really like a two-tier trauma where the teachers are traumatized, the students are traumatized, and now I was working with one school, and I said, I feel like this whole school is filled with individuals that have been domestic violence, and everybody is walking on eggshells because they don't know what's going to happen from one day to the next. But I will say that, especially with restorative trauma, can take into consideration these things, especially when there's a tracking system and we're getting the services that these kids need. Now, Dr. Paul Lamarca earlier stated this, and this is very imperative, that restorative justice just does not happen in the school. But also, too, we have to look at outside the school and what are some of the resources that are needed outside the school so that we can restore these kids also. So I hope I answered your question. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. And I have a second part to that question, if I may. Quickly, okay. This might be for Dr. Lamarca, but I noticed that in Washoe County, we had over 2,000 incidents of violence, but only 24 instances where those students were removed from school. And those are wildly out of line. And so can you please speak to why those don't line up in any way and how this legislation may help address that disparity?
Sure. For the record, Paul Lamarca, Assembly LaRue Hatch, thank you very much for your question. So the removals that are described in the handout, those are what we call interim alternative education setting placements. So these are events that create a long-term suspension, so more than a significant suspension, up to a semester, and events that create a 180-day expulsion. So the discrepancy is that, as you know, in law, we kind of, I guess, we refer to it as the big three, but there are certain offenses that require removal, either on a first offense or a second offense. So the ones where we have these IAES placements, interim alternative education setting, those are possession of a dangerous weapon as defined by statute, battery with bodily injury, and distribution of drugs,
Recording
habitual
stopped.
discipline.
Recording in progress.
I don't have to repeat that. So I do want
Recording
you to
stopped.
know that you're right. We see this discrepancy as well. And I also want you to know that in terms of significant suspensions or suspensions, out-of-school suspensions, within our school district this year, we've had over 5,500 out-of-school suspensions. So many of the events, most of the events that are listed here, they have led to a suspension, just not a long-term placement at a alternative educational setting.
Thank you for that. And next we'll go to Assemblywoman Hardy.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, Assemblywoman, for your work on this. I too was there in 2019 and participated in, the conversations of restorative justice. And I think sometimes when, with good intentions, and definitely I think those are good practices when they are put into place, maybe the training's not there, people don't understand, and then we have a situation where we are now, when there's danger and it becomes a safety issue. So I appreciate you taking this on so that we can find some solutions to both. So I just want to turn to the bill specifically, and if you could go through, I think it's important to get on the record what changes we're making. So specifically, the circumstances that a student must be expelled, may be expelled, and then the process for that, who decides? You know, in the bill it says they have to be told the reason and the evidence, and then is it, you know, the principal that decides that, the superintendent? So if you could just provide information of those two distinctions, and then when can a student immediately be removed from the school, and where are they removed to? Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman. I appreciate that. And I'm gonna phone a friend on some of this and go to Dr. Lamarca, because those things were not changed in the legislation. Part of what changed in the legislation is the notification, right? That the parents have to be told, and they have to be told exactly why, and that they have to have things within 48 hours. But Bill 285 didn't change when there was a may or when there was a must, and then where do they go from there? So I'm going to defer to Dr. Lamarca, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Assemblywoman,
Just
to fill the, to
so
fill the-
we're all clear on what's a must, what's a may, and then if you could address, I know it's a big topic, is the age of these different.
Okay, let me take that. I'll take the age piece, because that is in the bill.
Okay.
And then otherwise, which is just with the practice, and that's part of why he's worked in this. The age, what in the bill, it is, the recommendation in the bill is to remove the minimum age from 11, so that if there is a child that meets those criteria from that behavior in terms of this bill, right, that child could receive the appropriate disciplinary measures as spelled out. But what it also does from the amendment is that it isn't permanent expulsion from any age group, quite frankly, that they have an opportunity for reinstatement. Does that address the age thing for you, Assemblywoman? Thank you. Dr. Lamarca, if you would.
Thank you. For the record, Paul Lamarca, Washington County School District. So as I understand this, there's different scenarios in terms of who makes the decisions. There are the certain offenses that are spelled out in statute, and that would include possession of a dangerous weapon as defined by statute. I mean, the weapons that are considered dangerous, battery with bodily injury, distribution of controlled substances. Those require what we do is an emergency suspension. So that immediately a student would be placed out by a principal. The principal would refer that to the school district, and through the Board of Trustees and the designation through the superintendent, there is a hearing officer that holds a hearing and makes a determination. Those hearings typically include parents, school administration, relevant persons to the situation, and a decision is made. So for example, with a dangerous weapon, it is pretty much automatic, 180 days, you go to a different location. There is language in the statute that allows exceptions to be made. The change in Assembly Bill 168 from 2019 was that for battery and for distribution, for a first offense, the preference was to not remove a student, but to create a plan of restorative practices. And this is well-intentioned, but when we think of the standard of what a bodily injury is, that is significant. And I'm not sure waiting is in anyone's best interest, even the student who's committed the offense. So again, for the removals to a different educational setting, that's a Board of Trustee through the superintendent action. For shorter term suspensions that are still significant by law, that would be the decision of a principal. Teachers also are able to remove students from their classrooms for violent behaviors, disruptive behaviors. That's done within the school setting.
And thank you. I know that a few of us who were here in 2019 sort of wanted to get on the record that was the intent of the bill in 2019. And The unfortunate part about being a citizen legislature is that it's kind of on us, our onus, to make sure that the bill actually gets enacted and people are doing what they're supposed to be doing. So we're trying to make a really clear record here that this intent, we want all of these things. So, and we want them to happen. It doesn't do us any good just having it in NRS. So, I have 3 people who have questions. You guys, we have a lot of people who have a lot of opinions on this. So, but I do want to properly vet the bill. So, right now I have Assemblywoman Thomas, Assemblywoman Anderson, and Assemblyman De Silva. And are you on there too? And Assemblywoman Mosca. Did I miss you? Anyone not have a question? All right. All right. Okay. All right. Now we got everyone. So did you guys get that order? Thomas, Anderson, De Silva, Mosca.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the presentation. I do appreciate the time and effort that you've put into this, but as you know, that you and I have talked about it, I can say that I've had a lived experience, and going through the process, it's not 1, 2, 3, all right? The process, when you put something in a bill like this, whoever is reading it will use it verbatim. They're not using discretion when it comes to our students. And like the doctor explained, when it comes to weapons, that's another category. But when we're talking about, a 6 and 7-year-old in school doing cartwheels, that's disruptive. They can be taken out of that classroom. That teacher, we would hope, would use discretion, but most of the time they're not. And I say that because they have 30 other kids that they have to corral and teach. So going back to my lived experience, the process isn't as easy as we think it is. We have a student that will be out of school while the process is going, not into a learning environment while the process is going as far as suspension or expulsion. And when it comes down to it, we have to eliminate that murkiness inside that's happening, because everything right now is subjective to whoever is in the power of the expulsion of that student. All right. So, like I said, the lived experience that I went through, to me, it matters in this case. And I'll just get to the meat of what my question is when you use restorative justice, and I believe 168, AB 168, with Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson, I think that he also meant, and correct me if I'm wrong, to use what they have termed as social and emotional learning. And if we don't use those combined effort in restorative justice, we have a disjointment of the whole system. So if we're not doing this together with creating, because his whole thing was to keep our kids in school so that we don't have that pipeline from school to prison. That was the whole point of this. And this was the whole point of me running for my assembly district, because it seems like a district, Assembly District 17, when I go to a behavioral school where they're putting kids that look like me, the majority of them are in this school, they didn't use that other piece of the formula, which is that social and emotional learning. And when we tell us that we should allow a kid to be out of that environment for a year, I think that's egregious. I really do believe that. So my question is, in Washoe, I don't know about Clark. I would love for them to be at the table right now to tell me whether or not they're using the second part of the formula, the social and emotional learning.
Please go ahead.
Thank you for the question, Assemblywoman Thomas. For the record, Paul Lamarca. Very definitely, I could not agree with you more in terms of these things must work together. And I kind of commented on that in the sort of preface part of the presentation. We have social emotional learning curriculum, and it's introduced to K-12. We treat it as part of our core instructional practices, but we also have social emotional learning practices that we consider more tier 2, even tier 3 to an extent. I will tell you that if you look at specific practices that people identify as restorative, and you look at specific practices that people call social emotional learning, they are very often the identical processes. They're built around forming relationships and building community. So couldn't agree with you more. That has to be part of that prevention piece. We have to reteach those skills and throughout.
Madam Chair, may I add to this?
Briefly, we just have a
okay.
lot of people.
I also with social emotional, Assemblywoman Thomas, our Black and brown children have to be diagnosed correctly. When you diagnose little children oppositional defiant disorder, and don't look at post-traumatic stress because of the environment that they come from. When the diagnosis is off and they're in these different environments, it creates that hostile relationship. And I really believe that African-American children, brown children, have a misdiagnosis at an early age, and therefore their issues are not addressed. That takes them from education to that prison pipeline. So that has to be addressed, and so we do need culturally competent people to deal with these different type of issues. Thank you.
Next, Assemblywoman Anderson. Thank you, Chair, and thank you, everybody, for bringing this forward. It's something I think we're all very passionate about. My question has to do with the amendments, with the proposed conceptual amendments, in particular, number 3, with the a way back. Because I really appreciate you hearing that issue, because that had also been brought up to me. Are you considering putting it under page 9, under the new section where the Board of Trustees must come up with establishing a plan for that progressive discipline? Are you expecting at this time to also have the Board of Trustees make that decision, or is that a decision that you believe should be based upon the school site? This way it is consistent and it is not based upon personalities.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Anderson, and I've chatted with you a lot about this, so you kind of know where we are from an intention standpoint. This was the last thing someone said to me when I had my last meeting about 6:30 last night on this. No, and that was okay, but so I haven't even considered where, but I'm hearing what you're saying, in that we want it to be consistent across the district, not in this school if this child did, and it's really the, and this might address a little bit of what Assemblywoman Thomas said, it's really the extreme, the weapons that will be exposed, I mean, that will have expulsion, and when they come back, it's only those extreme cases, battery and whatnot. But so at this school, if this kid can get back with the same behavior over here, so you're looking for something that will be consistent across the board. So I'm going to put that on my notes. I mean, I've learned a lot from listening to the stakeholders, and this is just helping. We want good policy, and it's just helping. So thank you for that.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Chair, because I do just want to again point out, this Board of Trustees shall establish or must establish a plan. Is this a shall or a must? Because I see both must at one point, but then earlier in the chapter it says shall. It is permissive. So I just didn't know if it was the Board of Trustees must.
Can you tell me where you're reading?
On page 9, line 24.
Okay.
The Board of Trustees may, in addition to establishing a plan, and then just on line 27, such a plan must. So I guess the comparison of may versus must is a little bit concerning to me. Is it they must do it or they may do it?
If I may, based upon what's written here is they may establish a plan, and if they do, the plan must be based upon restorative practices.
Thank you for that clarification. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Angie Taylor for the record. Sorry, Chair.
Thank you. Next, we have Assemblyman De Silva, and then we'll go directly to Assemblyman Mosca.
Okay, thank you, Chair. And thank you again, my great, most excellent colleague here from the Most Excellent Education Committee, Dr. Angie Taylor, Dr. Dupree, and Dr. Lamarck. Thank you for your presentation. And I just want to really just touch upon this subject matter as a teacher. You know, I'm a high school history teacher at Rancho High School, and there is such a thing as mandates, I believe. You know, when I was elected to office, and even when I was running, when I was talking to teachers, not just at my school, but throughout the community, there were two things that they brought up over and over and over and over and over again. So it's not like a majority of teachers. We're not saying 51 to 49. We're talking about pretty much everybody. And one was, of course, the salary issue, and the other one was the safety issue in the schools, and the fact that so many of them felt unsafe. And so I think that it's pivotal that we address this issue, that we're reassessing our understandings and perspectives on restorative justice. And I'll say that as a teacher, I do got to concur with my colleague, Assemblywoman Torres, that you know, when we embraced this, there was a lack of a training in many ways. I myself was a star-on teacher at my school. I sold my prep so I could work with the students who were kept on campus, who had committed some egregious acts. I mean, I can't even speak of here, you know. But on the same token, the administration didn't support us teachers in that effort. So I do want to say that on the record that, you know, when we do implement hopefully a new way forward here, that's something that's touched upon. And I also want to very briefly, I know we got some important guests who want to also speak upon this matter. Dr. Dupree mentioned the cultural competency. I think that as we move forward, we have to look at what kind of teachers we're putting into our classrooms, teachers who know the students, know the environments that they're coming from, can connect with them on a multitude of different actual avenues and ways. And one of them is looking at our pipeline and bringing in homegrown teachers from our schools, from our neighborhoods, from our communities is absolutely pivotal. And we should be, I think, as a body here, really paying a lot of attention to where those teachers come from, so we can help mitigate some of those issues that are created over time. So thank you again for your presentation, and I yield my time, Madam Chair. Thank you.
I wasn't sure there was a question there, but that's okay. Well, we're still learning. Assemblywoman Mosca.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Vice Chair Taylor, for this important bill. And I know the Chair at the beginning of the hearing really talked about the tension of our educators as well as our young people. And I know your values when it comes to intentionality of this bill as well as addressing disproportionality. So my question was really around, I know in 5G, it says that the board shall, it says it could be posted on the internet website maintained by the district, so the plan could be posted. Has there been any consideration or thought around, can we post some data without, young people's indicators that shows who this is happening to, so that we can monitor over time the disproportionality, if there is any, so that the stakeholders can also monitor as the policy gets implemented? And would love for you to have an opportunity to also talk about the intentionality.
Angie Taylor for the record. Thank you, Assemblywoman Mosca. Just a couple of things. I think the more that there's transparency around the implementation and the success, right, of in the areas that we need to change in restorative practices and really the progressive discipline based upon restorative practices, the better. And one of the things I got in, as someone was walking with me to caucus today, was the idea about making sure that every year things are being looked at, so we can make on a regular basis make adjustments if things need one way or the other. So I think that will be a really great addition. So I'll get back over when I'm finished talking. I can type it back. I'm taking notes as we go. And from an intentionality standpoint, thank you for that opportunity. It's the nuance between as I said, disproportionality is a fact. There are two facts: disproportionality and not doing a great job around our marginalized kids, in particular our black and brown students and black and brown males. Another fact, school buildings are not as safe as they used to be. Our teachers are afraid. Our teachers don't feel safe, and they aren't able to do their best work. And so my intention is, how do we do both? And I just believe that we can. I'm just crazy enough to believe that we can, and that's the intention behind AB 285. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and we're going to have you guys sit back and we're going to have people come up and support, fill the chairs down in Las Vegas and fill the chairs here. But just know that just because you're stepping back doesn't mean these conversations are over, so we'll continue to have them. So we're going to go down to Las Vegas to start. So as I reminded, I'd like to keep testimony to about 20 minutes. It is, what time is it? Well, 2:28. We'll say it's 2:25, just mom's initiative. I'm going to say it's 2:25. So we'll go 20 minutes until really what it is. So beyond. We'll go a little over 20 is what I'm trying to say. Cold medicine. Okay. We're going to start in Vegas.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Marie Nices, M-A-R-I-E-N-E-I-S-E-S-S, President of CCEA. I'm speaking in support of AB 285. However, we have not seen the amendment and reserve the right to change our opinion as we have not reviewed the amendments. This fall will be my 30th year at CCSD. I've spent my entire teaching career working at Title I schools with our most at-risk students. We need to cultivate a culture of deterrence that prevents the kind of violent and disruptive behavior we are dealing with in our schools, while also safeguarding the environment of learning in our classrooms so that educators can teach and students can learn. In 2019, restorative justice legislation was passed to address the disproportionate punishment of Black and brown students for disruptive and violent behavior and in the school-to-prison pipeline. This legislation was passed with the right intentions, but 4 years later, the lack of resources and proper implementation has only contributed to the crisis of violence in our schools today. AB 285 puts forward solutions to this problem by instating elements of progressive discipline informed by restorative practices, providing alternative placements for our habitually disruptive and violent students, and implementing the necessary wraparound services to ensure that every student in CCSD gets the help and support they need to be successful. To further highlight, we believe these changes need to be made, why we believe these changes need to be made, I want to share some specific examples of chronic violent and disruptive behaviors. One educator had her spine fused after being assaulted by a student. A fourth grader punched a pregnant educator in the stomach. Another educator was assaulted by a student, kicked in the groin, and had their wrists broken. That same child attacked the educator by punching him in the eye. Finally, we are all familiar with the heinous act on the El Dorado teacher. This is simply unacceptable. Our students are also being injured and harmed at the hands of their peers. At Cheyenne High School, 12 students attacked a student and the victim was on the floor in a fetal position. They kicked, punched, and beat him until he defecated himself. A high school student with a history of sexual assault during middle school allegedly raped a student. The student was transferred to Palo Verde High School. He was later arrested and charged with raping another student. To conclude, disruptive and violent behavior impacts student outcomes. Chronic disruption and violent behaviors eat up precious instructional time and erode our educators' confidence and sense of safety in their workplace. We must act now. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll stay in Vegas. And what I was trying to say is we're going to go to 150. Go ahead, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Angie Joy, and I'm a proud CCEA member and a second grade teacher at Ann Lynch Elementary School. I'm here today to share with you why Assemblywoman Taylor's bill, AB 285, is so necessary. A few years ago, I was teaching first grade, and I had a little girl in my class who would turn into the Hulk. It could be as simple as me calling on another child to answer a question, and she would start flipping desks and throwing things at students. In situations like these, you call the office for help, but sometimes help doesn't come or it comes too slowly to keep someone from getting injured. This carried on for several weeks until the principal had a meeting with the parent requiring her to be at school with her daughter to prevent this behavior. She came for one day and then moved her daughter to another school to start the same cycle again. This past year, a little boy, let's call him Kyle, was placed in my second grade classroom. When asked to do his work, something as simple as turn to page 5 in your math workbook, his aggressive and destructive tantrum would begin. He would throw backpacks, books, pencils, chairs, and shove desks. Now again, in situations like these, you call the office for help, but in 10 minutes, he's brought right back and the cycle begins again. I asked the admin what could be done, and they pretty much said nothing. They told me to document everything in Infinite Campus, which is our school database. When I began documenting, I noticed that Kyle had 4 pages of violent and aggressive behavior from first grade, of Kyle kicking his teacher, hitting other students, throwing things, and nothing substantial had been done. Nothing to stop the behavior, nothing to help Kyle, just nothing. Every morning, we were losing about an hour and a half of reading and math instruction time because of Kyle. As Kyle's behavior progressively worsened, I was told to call his dad to come pick him up. So I did every day until Kyle's dad asked for him to be put into another teacher's classroom to see if that would make a difference. So Kyle is placed in a new classroom doing the same things, but unlike me, his new teacher is breaking. She cries on her prep, and she says she just doesn't want to do this anymore. I can honestly say that in my classroom, all 19 other kids were sitting there ready to learn, some scared as they moved their desk away from Kyle, but silently waiting to have a school day, silently waiting for class to begin, to join a discussion, to read a book, to feel safe in their classroom. It's not fair to them. It's not fair to their parents who sent their kids to school to learn in a safe environment. Teachers are leaving for good because they can't teach and because they don't feel safe. In the previous year, a pregnant teacher quit mid-year because a student hit her in the stomach.
If you could just wrap up, we have a lot of folks who want to speak, so.
I have another colleague at an elementary school who was stabbed in the leg with a pencil, and in the past year, I know we've all read newsworthy stories in this district and many others of the amounts of escalated violence in schools. It is my hope that AB 285 bill will give us back a safe learning environment for these kids and for the educators who teach them. Thank you.
Thank you, and it looks like you were reading off something, so if you could give that to the committee staff there, and we will definitely put that on Nellis. I appreciate it. Next in Vegas.
Good afternoon, Chairwoman and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Kristen Nigro, Kristanigro, and I'm a kindergarten teacher here in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm here today speaking in support of AB 285. I've been a dedicated educator in the great state of Nevada for almost a decade. I'm a recipient of multiple education awards, and I currently serve on the executive board of the Clark County Education Association. The past 2 years, I have had extreme behaviors in my classroom that would make an adult cower in fear. I most recently was told by a 5-year-old that they wanted to stab me and watch me bleed out. Last year, on the first day of school, one of my new students came to school very, very angry. At one point during the day, she completely trashed my room and hit another student in the face with a hardcover book. I never viewed books as weapons, but this little girl made me rethink everything I had in my classroom. That moment was not an isolated incident. Every single day we lived in fear. Progressive discipline was never followed, and many times after her explosive behavior, she'd be removed and then come back a few moments later with a lollipop. Fast forward to January. My student had an explosive behavior day. My student teacher evacuated students to safety, and I stayed in the room. That student went to my desk, grabbed a sharp pair of scissors, and threw them at my face. I was seconds away from having a significant injury to my face. That situation was my line in the sand. I explained to my administration that if they did not remove the student from my class, I was going to leave the profession. Throughout that 7 months, no progressive discipline was followed. That child was allowed to be violent towards me and other students, and the only time there was a required parent conference was when the administration had enough. It's ironic that we constantly reference restorative justice. It's just a fancy buzzword and a complete failure. My story is an accurate depiction of what restorative justice looks like in our schools. It's not working and there's no accountability. The situation opened my eyes to the injustice for all the other students. It's not fair that a student can walk into a classroom and be violent and disruptive without any consequences. During my time at UNLV to become an educator, I must have missed that class where they said my daily regimen would consist of protecting my students from other violent students, as well as students missing countless hours of instruction. I am urging you to support the school safety bill. I am only one educator out of thousands in the state of Nevada. The amount of educators that are dealing with the same type of situation that I have dealt with is terrifying. We are bleeding educators and will continue to bleed educators. If something isn't done, consequences and accountability are not punishment tactics. It's what helps shape people into being productive members of society. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And if you would submit those comments as well. Thank you very much. And we're going to come up to Carson City.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Przinski, here representing Nevada Association of School Superintendents, an organization composed of all 17 superintendents, and we are in support of this bill and the bills that are trying to adjust the restorative justice issues. Lots of unintended consequences from the bill a couple of years ago. And I think one of the biggest problems was the bill was signed, and a couple of weeks later it goes into effect, and the proper training of everybody was not there, and it resulted in lots of things that were unintended. Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the committee, for the record, Randy Saltero, representing the Education Support Employees Association. We are here in support of AB 285 with the amendments. You don't need to hear from me. It'd be better from the folks we have down in Las Vegas. Thank you so much. We support.
Hi, Alexander Marks with the Nevada State Education Association. Throughout session, NSEA has talked about the Respect Educator Act to elevate the safety and well-being of educators in their work. AB 285 and the subsequent 194 will be heard next are in line with those stated goals and are common sense proposals that help ensure educator safety. NSEA supports a restorative discipline system that works and does not put our educators in the emergency room. If we cannot implement this properly and get it right, we have to protect our educators, many of whom have left this profession due to being on the receiving end of violence. Then we can continue to work on proper implementation, which again, NSEA has been a long-time advocate of. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll go to the phone lines. BPS, is there callers in support? We'll take 3 callers.
To testify in support of AB 285, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue. Chair, we have no callers wishing to testify in support at this time.
Thank you. Okay, we'll head back to Vegas. Go ahead in the green if you want to start. And you can just go down the line.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, my name is Jessica Jones, Jessica Jones. I'm a kindergarten teacher at a Title I school on the east side of Las Vegas. I am also the secretary of the Clark County Education Association. I'm here today to testify in support of AB 285 and reinstating progressive discipline practices in our schools. So I believe that legislation on restorative justice was passed with the best intentions. The results have been disastrous when it comes to safety for our students and staff. Last year, I was assaulted by a student in my class. This student grabbed me, threw me up against a wall. He pulled my arm with so much force that I thought he dislocated my shoulder. What ended up happening then is I had to seek medical attention, and I was in chronic pain and in a sling for a few weeks. After that initial assault, the student, he did it again once I recovered. And when I had spoken with my admin about why nothing had been done, because he continued to attack me and other students in my classroom with no consequences, my principal told me that her hands were tied because of the law. So a few months later, another student, while throwing a tantrum, decided he would pick up a chair and he would throw it at me and our special education aide that was in my room doing inclusion minutes with other students. He then began to punch and hit me and other children in my class. When I asked why he behaved this way, he responded that he wanted to hurt me because he was angry. That child brought up when we were having a meeting with his mom and my administration that the reason he attacked me and for his behavior was because he thought it was okay because of what he had seen in class previously. So when I decided I became a teacher, or I wanted to become a teacher, and I was studying in my undergraduate degree, something that always stuck out to me was that all behavior is learned. In this case, that student in my classroom had learned that violence is acceptable because of the lack of discipline and consequences for bad behavior. It's really sad. I'm trying not to cry. Sorry, it's a little traumatic to talk about. But I have 25 students in my classroom this year who witness violence almost on a daily basis with no consequences whatsoever. When children feel unsafe in school, they can't focus, their attendance and their grades begin to drop, The same thing occurs with staff. When educators feel unsafe, they cannot focus on teaching or supporting our students. It becomes difficult for me to do my job with the thought of being attacked again always in the back of my mind. We need to ensure that every school and every classroom is safe for both students and our staff. So for these reasons, I'm asking that you support AB 285 and reinstate progressive discipline practices for violent and disruptive behaviors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, in Vegas.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson and the committee. For the record, my name is Carl, K-A-R-L, last name Bird, B-Y-R-D. I am a 26-year educator with the Clark County School District. I am here speaking on behalf of educators and to support the passage of Assembly Bill 285 on school safety. Recently at my school, there was a fellow educator who attempted to break up a fight when the educator was pushed away violently by a parent as some students cheered and filmed the incident, which was later posted on Instagram. Other students were shocked and bewildered that this could happen to one of their teachers. Incidents like this are one of the prime reasons why many educators are leaving the profession. The current restorative justice law does not have a zero tolerance policy for violent behavior, which needs to be in place to send a clear message that violence against educators will not be tolerated. AB 168 has made it more difficult for the Clark County School District to hold certain students accountable for misconduct. If a principal needed to remove or expel a student for a violent act involving a police citation, they previously had the option to send that student to an alternative school for a temporary period. But even those kinds of cases have been getting kickback to principals. We need to reinstate aspects of progressive discipline for disruptive behavior, but there are certain behaviors, including bringing firearms to school or violent behavior resulting in extreme injury or possible death, which must be dealt with swiftly. You cannot have students interpreting restorative justice as a green light to misbehave. I urge our lawmakers to support Assembly Bill 285, led by Assemblywoman Angie Taylor, including the recommendations regarding zero tolerance for firearms and violent behavior, the reinstatement of aspects of the progressive discipline for disruptive behavior which were effective before AB 168, and the establishment of alternative placements for violent and habitually disruptive students to ensure that our children can learn and our educators can teach in a safe environment. Thank you, Madam Chair and the committee.
Thank you very much for your testimony. Next in Vegas.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Tiffany Chimaroke. I've been an educator for over 11 years. I am a CCEA member. I've been teaching 5th grade at an elementary school here in Vegas for a year now. I have 36 students in my classroom, 7 of which who have behavior students. 7 of those are students who have excessive, habitually disruptive behaviors in the classroom. One of those 7 starts a fight with her peers every day. This student has deep emotional trauma where it is hard for her to process her emotions. She yells inappropriate language, stomps her feet, slams school furniture and equipment down, and even uses her Chromebook as a weapon towards her peers. The student has trouble communicating her emotions and needs wraparound services for her social and emotional learning. At my school, the procedures for handling this student are to remove her from the classroom for 1 or 2 blocks of time. Then she is allowed to come right back into the classroom for that cycle to repeat itself. So this essentially places the student in a timeout until they cool off and they are allowed to return to the classroom when the student is ready. And that includes no educator input. So the constant fighting and disruptions in class prevent me and many of my colleagues from teaching during instructional time. Parent conferences have been offered. Sometimes the parent shows up and sometimes they do not. I support AB 285. Please reinstate the aspects of progressive discipline for disruptive behavior, provide alternative placements for violent and habitually disruptive students to ensure that each child is provided an education, and create wraparound services within each campus. Lastly, there needs to be a policy of zero tolerance for firearms and violent behavior on each and every campus. Thank you.
Thank you, and we're going to finish up here in Carson City. We have about 4 more minutes left, so I'll give you a little bit of grace, but we'll finish here. I know there's a lot of you in support. If I could actually ask, if you are in support of this bill, if you could stand. Okay. All right. That's a good visual. Thank you very much. Okay, so we'll come up to Vegas for testimony. To Carson City. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kalen Evans, and I'm the president of the Washoe Education Association. We represent the certified professionals in the Washoe County School District. I am here to testify in support of AB 285. I'm not going to reiterate a lot of what's been said, but I think we have to understand that there is no more of a pressing issue facing educators in our state and across our country right now than dealing with student violence and behavior. There is not a curriculum, a tiered instructional support, an assessment support, any initiative or program that we can implement that will have any of the intended impact that we would like unless we start to address the learning and working conditions in our school system. And I just want to be on the record, and I understand this is not a money committee, but we have to also understand that as good as this legislation is, and any legislation that you will pass, we are a grossly underfunded education system. Our schools are lacking the resources and the staffing that they need to implement any of the initiatives or legislation. So we cannot simply address these issues with policy alone. They have to be coupled, hear me please, they have to be coupled with the proper resources that our school districts, our school sites need to be successful. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Keibi Mejia, Keibimejia. I'm with the Ferrado Company today here on behalf of the Nevada Association of School Boards. NASB is in support of AB 194, and in the interest of time, we're going to echo the comments stated earlier by our colleague from the Nevada Association of Superintendents. We thank the sponsor for bringing this bill and urge your support. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rachel Puena, last name Puaina. I'm representing myself as an 8th grade English teacher. I'm very grateful for the amount of educators that are here represented. I just want to echo what they were saying in Clark County as well. I'm from Clark County. I worked at CCSD, but as people know, I could not believe the behaviors that I had seen. And I just want to echo that please give us some support. We really do need help. I cannot tell you how many times we've talked about behavior taking away from instruction. We see where I'm at, I'm grateful for the administrators who are supportive and trying their best, but they have repeated to us that it is because of restorative justice that they feel their hands are tied. And if you could please, I beg of you, we are losing educators, and I don't know how many times at my job site that I have to hear a teacher walk away each year. And it weighs on us because we have to think about our test scores and everything, and it really impacts the students. And just to give one quick story, one of the biggest impacts I've ever had was having to see one of my students look at me with tears in her eyes when I had a student just being disruptive every day. And she, with tears in her eyes, said, "Mrs. Puena, please do something about him." And I look at her after restorative justice was passed, we were told we could not kick out students. Now, that may not have been the intention, but that's what the administrators heard. And so I had to look at her and I wanted to say, I want to help you. And it hurt me to look at her when she was like, please, I just want to, that's what she wanted. I want to learn. I looked at the others and it was just one student being disruptive and I couldn't do anything. So please, I beg of you, please think of us and think of the students that really are there to learn. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we are out of time. I know we have 2 people sitting in Vegas, and we have 1 person sitting here. If you want to say your name on the record and say that you're obviously in support, we'll get it in the record. So go ahead in Carson City.
Don Gallimore Sr., Reno Sparks NAACP, and we support this legislation. We need some amendments. Thank you.
So down in Vegas, if you two would like to say your name, and we'll make sure we have it in the record, we've got to move on to opposition.
My name is Greta Blunt Johnson. That's GRETA BLUNT-JOHNSON, and I am in support of AB 285. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Two more.
My name is Tirsa Ballman, Tiersa. The last name is Ballman, Baughman, and I am in support of Assembly Bill 285.
Thank you. And finally, sir, in Vegas.
My name is Julius Mannix, JULIUS-MANNIX. I'm a third grade teacher and a Clark County Education Association member, and I'm in support of this bill.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And now we will close the testimony in support, and we will move to opposition. It is, let's see if I can do this, 2:50, so we will go until about 3:15. Okay, if we have that. Okay.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Holly Wellborn, and I am the Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Alliance. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today, and I appreciate the conversations that we had prior to this committee hearing on this bill and other legislation that we'll see this session. I first want to make it abundantly clear that I have, and CAA has the utmost respect for our teachers, that a disruptive school environment is bad for all children in the school setting, that having attention in the classroom is crucial for child development, and we share that vision for classrooms that operate effectively for every student. But the Children's Advocacy Alliance cannot support legislation that purports to remove elementary school aged children, and many with severe emotional issues, mental health issues, psychological issues, from school permanently, or that interrupts their education for extended periods of time when there are no alternatives for these children. There are currently in this state, the Department of Justice investigation found that there are no community-based supports for children in this age group to support their mental health and development. What we are doing by reaching that age group, that under 11 age group, we are relegating those children to the child welfare system because they'll be sent home and we'll have to have educational instruction with parents at home. Those parents have to work, there could be a finding of neglect. We're very concerned about that. We're also concerned that children will end up in the juvenile justice system unnecessarily when there could have been some kind of intervention at the elementary school level to deal with these kids. I agree with the statements that restorative justice, the program, the bill that Assemblyman Tyrone Thompson pushed through this legislature. I helped him with that legislation. We're proud of the work that he did. I think that he would be with you right now trying to resolve this issue and having this conversation with us. I truly believe that. But this age group is far too fragile to throw these children away. We have to find a solution that's going to work for these kids. And until this body is willing to make that investment in those community-based supports, we are failing kids for the future, and we're failing our community for the future. Thank you.
Chair, members of the committee, Jonathan Norman, Norman. I'm with the Nevada Coalition of Legal Service Providers. We represent kids in foster care both at Northern Nevada Legal Aid and Legal Aid Center of Southern Nevada. We also have an education advocacy team. Teachers obviously deserve a safe place to work, and administrators, right? And students deserve a safe place to learn. In listening to the comments in support of this legislation, it's heartbreaking, but some of the things I heard are training for restorative justice, no support for teachers from administration when there is a problem in the classroom. We need wraparound services. These children have trauma. Create wraparound services on each campus. Schools are lacking, underfunded. One one teacher had a student named Kyle, she mentioned, and she said, looked back at his file and said in first grade he had, it was numerous infractions and nothing was done to help Kyle, right? There was no, she just said nothing was done, right? And the child was just moved through. Our schools have an obligation under Child Find when a child has, and when a child's engaged in having a lot of disciplinary interactions, and we're hearing words like trauma, that I know that clues educators in that this could be a kid who should have special education, who should have an IEP and have those supports in place. And what I am worried about is that not just teachers have left, but all those supports. And so we need to look at how many social workers do we have per student, how many school psychologists do we have per student, and what does that look like on our campuses? Because if we don't have the supports for teachers and the supports for students, and then these kids are going to be permanently expelled, like this contemplates permanently expelling kids who are 8 years old. And then so the questions then become, where do those kids go? What are our alternative educational placements? And I think a question I would ask, I'm not aware of behavior schools in the rurals or in Washoe County. Clark County has behavior schools for kids, I believe, over 6th grade. So so I think, where are those alternatives? And then also, we need to see data from the school districts on, are they, right now, with the expulsions they're allowed to do, how those are for racial breakdown, kids with IEPs, kids with 504 plans, kids on reduced and free lunch, because I think this will disproportionately impact those groups, and I think it's worth looking at. And I think it's also worth getting data on what are kids getting expelled for right now. And then that can be a guide for the legislature as to how, if we lower this age range, how we can anticipate younger kids being expelled and what groups of younger kids. Thank you so much, Chair.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Piro from the Clark County Public Defender's Office, JOHNPIRO. And you may ask, what's our nexus to this? I share the same concerns that my colleague from Legal Aid serves. When these kids get expelled and they have no place to go, guess where they're going to go? To the juvenile justice system. And that's where we're going to be dealing with that. And that's an expensive place that doesn't have a lot of good solutions. Our schools are some of the best solutions, and I wholeheartedly agree that teachers should not be working in an unsafe environment and students should not be learning in an unsafe environment. But I did hear some of the same things that Mr. Norman did in his support. Some of it sounded like a lack of admin and implementation and a lack of support for the teachers, which is problematic. And in this state, because I've been here since I was 6 and educated in the Clark County School District, we've never set up our educators for success. We've never set up our students for success. We have high class sizes, so teachers make it very difficult to respond to a large amount of children. We don't really fund our kids. We keep getting these reports that we're last place. We stay last place, and we keep leaving here from Carson City, just staying where we're at. And then we wonder why things aren't getting better. And we have these traumatized children, homeless children, foster children. Where are they going to go? I think part of the issue in this bill, for sure, we need to talk about the age of the child and keeping it at 11 years old. We also need to talk about creating a more clear path backwards, like back into school, and what those services look like. Because I got to tell you, as a practitioner in this community, there's no services for these kids out in our community. There's no services for adults out in the community. They're very limited. And we need to be open and transparent about data. Not only what are the issues with the children, but who are the educators that are referring children the most? Who are the schools that are referring the children the most? Looking at that. This is a very well-intentioned bill. We thank Assemblywoman Taylor for speaking with us, hearing our concerns, and we definitely hope to find a path forward to protect both students and teachers.
We're actually going to go down to Las Vegas. Vegas, you can go ahead.
Dr. Kyle Rogers for the record, KYLEROGERS. And so today what we're talking about in part is accountability and accountability for students. But what is at the core of the issue is accountability for adults, because restorative practices are not being followed, at least in Clark County, our largest county. Let me give you a few examples. NRS 392-4646 states that when a kid is removed from the classroom, there's supposed to be a meeting. That meeting that is supposed to always include the teacher. I have never heard of a teacher being invited to these disciplinary meetings. Teachers are almost never invited to the disciplinary meetings, usually the admin and the parent. How can we resolve conflict? How can we restore a relationship if the teachers aren't being invited to these meetings as is required by law? That is also in CCSD's own suspension policy. If you pull up their suspension policy, they clearly state they only want a meeting between the admin, the student, and the parent, and the teacher is excluded from that even though it's required by law. Secondly, someone on the committee said they would love to see data. By law, NRS, this one's NRS 392-46-2, every single school website, every single school in Nevada is supposed to post their discipline data on their school website. It's already required by law. None of the schools, at least all of the ones I've checked in Clark County, are not doing that. You can go to their websites right now and see that they're not doing, they're not being transparent. Last school year, there were 110,000 cases of exclusionary discipline in Clark County School District. That's a combination of suspension, suspension with instruction, RPC, and in-house suspension. 110,000 cases. Each case represents multiple days of missed instruction. So because of excessive discipline, we are seeing hundreds of thousands of days of missed instruction in just Clark County. That is data I obtained through a public records request. I can present it to you. You actually have someone on the committee, Assemblywoman Ms. Thompson, who went to a community presentation I gave, and the data I have available, broken down by race, by disability, etc., will absolutely shock you. I am also a teacher. I teach at Peterson Behavior School, and I'm begging you that before you pass anything, you visit a school like mine and ask these kids how their rights are regularly violated. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And if you would submit that data, I will make sure that I get it out to the committee. Please go ahead.
Yesenia Gonzalez for the record, YESENIA GONZALES. As much as I believe and I want to support wholeheartedly these staff members to be protected, because CCSD is supposed to provide a safe learning environment, it's not being done. As Dr. Rogers mentioned, CCSD does not really comply with policies as well. They don't really do anything in regards to restorative justice, and my child was product of one of them when he was attacked in 2021 by another student who attacked him from behind and broke his nose in half. The school tried to flip it on my child, try to make my child the aggressor. I have a special needs child, so this is the language in here. It's something that can also affect special needs students, because many times we don't know if it is a behavior pertaining to their disability. School staff don't have manifestation meetings to address the behaviors, because some of these suspensions can last up to 10 days. Black and brown students are mentioned, and unfortunately, if that's what the demographics show, we need to also identify why is it happening amongst those groups. I wholeheartedly believe that respect starts at home, but some of these kids don't go home to a loving home. They don't. We don't know what trauma they are going through. We don't know if that is behavior reflecting of that. In my case, when it came to having a meeting with the individual, the aggressor who attacked my child, there was actually no way to really pursue and have some form of restorative justice, because the parent pulled the child from the school, and actually they enrolled him into another CCSD charter school that my son had ironically also been accepted, because I pulled my child immediately out. And so this child had a warrant out for their arrest. This is an 11-year-old child. Now, I don't know what his circumstances are besides that he was a foster child. I empathize for the foster child. But at the same time, when you have parents that think that by removing the student and putting them into another school, and the school is not aware of the habitual disciplinary issues going on with that child, how are we going to fix that? And so I just wish that if and when these incidents do happen, these schools really do the research. These schools actually implement and help these students, because these schools are not doing it. Administrators are not doing it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person in Vegas, and then we're going to go to the phone lines.
Good afternoon. My name is Tanya Walls. Tanya, Tonya, Walls, Walls. I'm speaking as a representative of Code Switch Restorative Justice for Girls of Color and in opposition to AB 285/194. Code Switch is a strong proponent of measures to keep all children, families, and educators safe on school campuses, which is why it's disheartening to hear the stories that we're hearing from teachers involved with CCEA, as well as other opponents. However, I do want to make clear that restorative justice, as we are speaking about it, as I am speaking about it, is not what's happening in this state or in the Clark County School District. Restorative justice has not been implemented as per the legislation, and I believe that it's being scapegoated because of implementation challenges, accountability challenges, and a lack of fiscal support for our educators and the schools. What I'm hearing is that there's a lack of professional development support, there's a lack of wraparound services support, there's a lack of accountability. When students do experience disciplinary challenges, there's a lack of personnel to support them. There's a lack of responsiveness from leaders to support both families and students. That's not a legislative issue, that's an implementation issue. I also want to speak to a myth. There's this myth that restorative justice is too soft. It's perhaps the most common myth. Restorative justice can't work because it ties teachers' hands and takes away any severe enough punishments to keep students in line. The current most common punishment that we are using right now, especially in Clark County School District, as per Kyle's testimony and the data, is exclusionary and punitive discipline. It's no tolerance discipline. And it was also the most common disciplinary practice before we had restorative justice. There's a reason why Tyrone Thompson pushed this bill. So the challenge that it was working, it was not working. And yet we are trying to legislate to go back to what we were using and what Clark County School District at least is using right now. They are using progressive discipline and telling teachers it's because of restorative justice. That is not the case.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your comments. BPS, we'll take 3 callers on the line.
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 285, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello. My name is Yesenia Moya, Yesenia Moya. As a restorative justice and transformative justice practitioner, I am appalled by this bill. I hear the teachers today asking for help, and I'm asking them to not blame the youth. The bill is aimed at criminalizing and throwing our children into the school-to-prison pipeline, putting a Band-Aid on a systemic problem in our education system. From the admin to the staff to the teachers, no one has been trained nor have they been implementing restorative justice practices correctly. In fact, community members that have tried to implement these practices have been ousted from the conversation altogether. Vote no on these bills because our youth deserve better than oppressive tactics hiding behind words like progressive discipline. Vote no because our youth are controlled, managed, and moved around like furniture. If they have no autonomy, why are they being held accountable for the limitations of a system not meant for them? Vote no because our youth matters. Ask why these incidents are happening. We need more counselors, emotional intelligence, wraparound services, and training for everyone. Assemblyman De Silva said we need more homegrown educators. And as one, I want y'all to know I left the UNLV College of Education because of the racist ways I was being taught to quote unquote manage my classroom. After experiencing the way teachers, staff, and admin treat youth as second-class citizens with no rights nor autonomy, I decided to switch my degree with less than 9 credits to go. When adults cannot stop thinking in hierarchical, internally biased and stereotypical lenses, it results in the inability of youth to learn in an environment that upholds and uplifts them. Vote no because our youth deserve a chance, and it's on the adults in the community to make it happen. Youth don't act out for no reason. Do not condemn our youth. Black and brown kids are consistently pushed into the juvenile system due to expulsions. Stop the criminalization of our kids and hold the adults who are in charge accountable, because our students do not feel safe with most of you. Thank you.
Thank you. BPS next caller.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. My name is Leslie Turner. I'm calling as a resident of Clark County. I have a 7-year-old that's in the district. He's in 1st grade. I have a few questions. One is just, has there been any research on community factors that contribute to increased levels of violence? Because it seems like Dr. Walls mentioned that the restorative justice is being scapegoated. And also, I just want to say for the record that I'm in opposition of this bill. But it seems like restorative justice is being scapegoated in particular. So it's kind of crazy because we've had a very profound moment in society with the pandemic, with extreme isolation, mental health, continuous grief. Thousands of people died. These are all things that I think are contributing to what we're seeing now in classrooms, and not even just in classrooms, but just across the country, just in society in general. So has anyone looked at that? Have folks looked at the contributing factors of violence? Have they looked at restorative and transformative justice models that have been successful in other places? Has there been any research on just like understanding how the pandemic has impacted behaviors of children and parents and families? Have you talked to people living in the most impacted neighborhoods and listened to what their solutions are? Have you surveyed families? I haven't had anyone reach out to me. And luckily, my son is at a really good school, but no one's said anything to me about how do I feel about the restorative justice practices at his school. So I think that, there needs to be just a deeper look at this and stop kind of just being reactionary and just being like, oh, it's restorative justice that's causing all these problems. Actually, we're at a profound moment in society that we need to look at and stop triaging symptoms and really get to the root cause of what's going on in society and with our kids and really start doing some healing. And I also just want to add that restorative justice is not a lack of accountability. So a lot of people will keep saying that, and it's just, y'all don't know what you're doing. You're not implementing it correctly. You're not actually doing it the way that it's supposed to be done. So hopefully this bill does not pass and that you guys go back to the drawing board and actually give some resources so that restorative justice practices can be implemented correctly.
Thank you.
So that they actually can be effective.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
Okay, we
Thank you.
are just about out of time. I see at least one person down in Vegas, and I have 2 people up here. If I could have the person in Vegas just tell me your name, who you're with, and that you're against the bill, and we'll get that on the record. We'll go to Vegas.
My name is Jante Marshall. I am the co-founder of 1865 No Racism in Schools, and I am in opposition of the bill.
Thank you. And we'll come up to Carson City and do the same.
Good afternoon, Chair, members of the committee. Erica Roth, ERICAROTH, testifying in opposition to the bill. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the committee. My name is Lilith Barron, LILITH Policy Manager for the ACLU of Nevada. We are also in opposition.
Thank you. And if there's anyone on the phone lines or there who did want to intend to speak in opposition, please submit your comments and I'll make sure that the committee receives them. Okay, with that, we are going to close opposition and open neutral testimony. Do we have anyone here in Carson City in neutral? And if you're in neutral, you can fill up those seats and fill up the seats in Vegas as well. Go ahead, Carson City.
Aisha Goins, Black Joy Consulting. I'm here on behalf of the NAACP of Las Vegas. Aisha is AESHA-GOINS. Even after hearing these teachers' traumatic experiences and having great empathy for them, this bill has a lot of potential in its intent. However, I don't think all the intent has made it to the conceptual amendment. The NAACP won't support any bill where children aren't offered an opportunity for restorative education at any age, but also in Section 5, subsection 2, I'm concerned about the intent the Assemblywoman has and what the trustees will interpret is solely based on the words shall, may, and will. The NAACP Las Vegas is neutral until the actual amendments are available, and I'm making myself available to help assist in the language on this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Goins. I think we're going to have to put you in opposition. That was not really neutral testimony, but I appreciate the effort. You really tried. Okay, Vegas, go ahead in neutral testimony.
Hi, my name is Andrea Michelle Esquivel, and personally, I have mixed feelings about this bill. So, first, I am all for, second chances, even third chances when the person really deserves it, right? I think back to my own experiences, and so when I was hearing, some of these teachers, I think back to my own experiences. Something that that's why I have mixed feelings about this. When the bill talks about special needs, how this would also apply to them. So me, as a mother I have 4 kids, 3 of them have autism. So when it comes to special needs students, I feel that this wouldn't be fair to them. This wouldn't really apply to them. So, and one of my own sons, they went through something, my youngest son, where he had his leg broken on purpose on a school bus when he was 4 years old, and this was done by another special needs student. So, considering that the other student with special needs, we decided not to go after him, his family. So, I think there are other ways, and I feel that this is also a way for example, for CCSD to wash their hands when they have the money to put other things in place. For example, the rise in weapons, in guns, in schools. Why don't they put metal detectors? Why don't they provide more trainings? Why don't they provide?
Ma'am, I appreciate I appreciate, but we're going to speak to the bill. I know neutral is kind of a nuanced thing because we think like, oh, I'm not sure what I think. Neutral is really, usually from a state agency or something like, I don't have one way we will implement it, but I know it's a little for a personal issue. It's kind of hard, but just if you could speak to the bill or just finish up.
Basically, I just I have mixed feelings about the whole thing, but thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. It's important that you're down there. Thank you. Next person.
Anna Binder for the record, ANNABINDER. As I gave testimony to you guys when I was up in Carson City a couple of weeks ago talking about one of my special education children. And what I have heard, my son was a Kyle. And I briefly told you about some things that we went through. But when he was in kindergarten to 3rd grade, the elementary school lacked the resources to actually tell me that he was being a Kyle. So for 3 consecutive school years, I was not told. I only found out because my older daughter came home and told me something that had happened on campus that day. As soon as I engaged with the school, the first thing that the school psychologist told me was she was split between too many schools, and the referrals to her take so long for her to get to, and she deeply apologized for any delay as we work towards implementing an IEP for him. I want everyone to be safe. And as a mother to a child who has to protect other people from her child, I know firsthand the struggles. I know firsthand how it does feel in trying to seek out help, feeling alone, feeling like a terrible parent. But at the end of the day, when the school that he was inflicting all of that upon didn't even have a heart to tell me that that's what he was putting them through every day, crushed me. I heard mentioned that you wished that CCSD was at the table today, and it's very unfortunate that they're not. I did send through 2 exhibits. When their agenda posted, they have a presentation for student discipline on their agenda for next week. I have sent that link through so you guys can review that. But what it predominantly says is that for first semester for the 2022-2023 school year, that Black and African American students are disproportionately being suspended at a rate of 125.8%. And then next in line is our special education children at 74.7%. I have still 4 children in the Clark County School District. I know we're not a financial or a fiscal meeting, but I think everything that's been said here from the community and our staff is further proof that we need to fund Senate Bill 37 for the workforce that we need to support our children.
Thank you. Thank you, Ma'am. I'm going to have you wrap up unless you wanted to speak.
That's fine.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And thank you for being up here and testifying and coming down to Grants Ferry. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else who is in neutral? BPS, is there anyone on the phone lines in neutral?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral to AB 285, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Anyone else who is in neutral?
Caller, you're unmuted on our end. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm on the phone. This is Chris Giuntiliani, Giuncigliani. I was originally going to testify in opposition, but through listening to the discussion, I think the intent is moved back to making sure that restorative justice is inclusive in progressive discipline. Now, I think actually AB 168 was purposefully set up to fail, and that's why we're here today, not just with this bill, with many of the frustrations from teachers. In the long run, the SEL, the social and emotional learning, needs to be not standalone, but incorporated throughout all restorative justice and progressive discipline. The training that is done by NDE, I'm told, is excellent. That should be the training across the state. You should not allow local districts to create their own training because it's going to add to more inconsistencies. IEP students, as a special ed teacher of 30 years, must be protected, and their IEP plans need to be understood and reviewed. Due process needs to be there for all students. Parents need to be held accountable for their students coming to school with a weapon. It's time that criminal charges were placed there. But I do have questions about the placement of students. Why a year? I wrote the original habitual discipline bill, and Tyrone and I actually worked on some of the changes that he was working on. But part of the issue comes down to required training is not done consistently, and it's not even in our undergrad programs. Very minimal school discipline programming is actually provided. Teachers in regular ed classes need to know how to deal with the kids that come in from special ed. And if those plans, IEP plans, aren't working, then need to reconvene. So what I heard today was frustration all the way around. with resources, lack thereof, implementation, class size, principals not trained correctly, teachers not trained, support personnel. Everybody that is required to do training should be compensated on their salary schedule for that. But there are just not enough family support and faculty support. So hopefully out of the nexus of this bill, there's a fiscal note for more social workers, counselors, family counseling, family therapy, family supports, class size reduction, and other things that help the teachers be able to teach and the support personnel be able to manage and supervise, and administrators be able to supervise. Thank you at least for bringing this bill forward. It's increased the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the call. BPS, is there anyone else in neutral on the phone lines?
Yes, hello. I'm not quite sure how to do this, and I'm calling from a phone, and I don't have Zoom. So please, I'll say something, and then you guys can tell me what I need to do. Good afternoon. Thank you for recognizing the dangers of teachers and school staff face in their classroom. I applaud the bill that is now quote unquote legal to suspend or expel a student for violence. However, this is not enough. The current star rating messes with the administrators' egos and their wish for a better star rating within their district as well as the state. The law still leaves the decision up to the principal, allowing these children, many with emotional and mental issues, to the help they need. I am now retired on disability and diagnosed with PTSD. I have been repeatedly hit, stabbed, and had furniture as well as desks and chairs thrown at me, as well as learning tools by 5-year-olds without IEPs. Maybe we should demand that they have a mental health examination by a licensed psychiatrist who does not work for the district. Using candy and iPad time is not an appropriate approach to this issue. Another suggestion would be for the parents to be required to attend school with their children until time as the teacher feels it is safe again. Actions by one student not only hurts the teacher, but it also the mental stability and education of the rest of the class. Seeing domestic violence in their classroom is uncalled for. The rest of the class deserves a peaceful classroom where they can learn without fear of violence. School is supposed to be a safe place. Thank you for letting me speak.
And I'm going to, if that was clearly you are for the bill, but could we also get your name for the record?
Yes, this is Marie Calzada, M-A-R-I-E, Calzada, C-A-L-Z-A-D-A.
Okay. Thank you very much, Marie, for the call. BPS, I will try and take one more call in neutral.
Chair, there are no more callers choosing to testify at this time.
Okay, with that, we will close the testimony, and I will invite the bill sponsor back up to make any closing comments.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, the most excellent committee on education. What a hearing, right? I want to thank everyone who came to make public comment, to testify, to share their stories, to express concerns and support. I want to thank Dr. LaMarca and Dr. Norris Dupree, who drove down and came up because this is such an important issue. I mean, this is it's a huge issue, obviously across our state, and that has many, many layers. And we're hearing about a lot of those layers now. It is a heavy lift, and if we didn't know that before now, we know it. We certainly know it now. But I will tell you, I'm not deterred. I think it's important that we hear the voices of those teachers. And they said teachers don't want children out of the classroom. That's why they got into the profession. But teachers do want to be safe. I don't want children out of the classroom. I don't think any of us do. But we want the classroom to be safe, and my intention is to find that nuance, that place, that maybe very thin line that does them both, and that is why I am not deterred. We have to balance disproportionality, equity, and commitment to all kids with a safe educational environment for all kids and staff as well. I remain open. I am grateful for the stakeholders who came forth in the very short time that we had to have some conversations about their concerns, and the door remains open. I want us to continue the conversation. This is clearly something that we need to continue to work on, and I'm committed to doing just that. So I invite you in. Let's talk about it, let's work on it, and let's fix it together. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Vice Chair. And with that, I will close the hearing on AB 285. And as mentioned, we are going to do a BDR introduction. We are going to lose some of our members in a half an hour. Who needs to leave? Who goes to revenue?
It's been canceled. I do have a subcommittee.
Okay, okay. That's right. Okay. Well, we're still going to do it. We're going to do a BDR draft request, draft introduction. So it is BDR number 34-1087. The measure is sponsored by the Office of the Governor, and it revises provisions governing education. Just remember that a vote in favor of introducing a BDR does not imply a commitment to support the measure at a later date. All this action does is allow the BDR to become a bill and enter the legislative hearing process. It does not imply commitment to support final passage. So I would take a motion to introduce BDR 34-1087. We have a motion from Assemblywoman Anderson. Do I have a second? Second by Vice Chair Taylor. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Those opposed say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, now I will open the hearing on AB 194. This measure revises provisions governing the discipline of pupils. Am I having deja vu? To present this measure, we have Assemblywoman Hanson, Assemblywoman Torres, Will Jensen, Deputy Superintendent, Humboldt County School District, Daniel Kirk, Principal at Lemon Valley Elementary School. Please begin when you're ready.
For the record, I am Assemblywoman Alexis Hanson, District 32, and thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Vice Chair, and of course, the most excellent Committee on Education for the opportunity to present AB 194 for your consideration today. It is my privilege to represent 6 counties in the great state of Nevada. Washoe, Pershing, Humboldt, Lander, parts of Eureka, and Elko counties. And I'm honored to have our colleague and an awesome high school teacher, Assemblywoman Selena Torres from District 3 in Clark County as a co-sponsor and a co-presenter of this bill today. I also appreciate Assemblywoman Taylor for her signing on to this bill as well. With the chair's approval, the way that we'd like this to kind of roll out, if it's okay, Assemblywoman Torres and myself will make opening remarks, and then we'll turn the time over to our co-presenters, Will Jensen, as stated, the Assistant Superintendent of Humboldt County, and formerly with the Nevada Department of Education for over 5 years with, as the State Director for Special Education. He will go through the bill, and Daniel Kirk, who's the principal of Lemon Valley Elementary School, which is also within the realm of my district until redistricting, will follow up with additional information regarding this important subject, if that's okay, Madam Chair. Thumbs up. As you can see, this has been a collaborative effort, and I think those of us involved represent a large portion of the state, Clark County, northern counties, Washoe County, and we come from diverse backgrounds. Let me preface my remarks with this, that it is certainly with reverence that I come before you today. We all love and revere Tyrone Thompson. I had the privilege of being here in 2019 in this very room with many of you, where we worked for what was best for the children of our state. And we all supported this AB 168 in 2019. And so please know that we are here to preserve the intent. We know and we love Tyrone, and we know his intent was to do what was best for children, as it is with us. And so as we go through this bill and we address questions, know that it is our priority to make sure that those principles of restorative justice are included as we move forward to fix some unintended consequences. And so how did this legislation come about? It was last May that several superintendents had approached me, educators, parents, teachers, and students, some of the concerns they were having that they were seeing in their school districts. And as I got to know and get information based on their expansive knowledge of being on the ground and in the trenches with the issues they were dealing with, it became very apparent that a solution was desperately needed. And a solution was needed sooner rather than later. I can't express enough my gratitude for the collaboration of many, especially Assemblywoman Torres, who has been invaluable and a resource in helping with this legislation so that we can protect students, staff, and hopefully restore some sense of equilibrium to a process that unfortunately has become fraught with danger and a loss of security. The reason that schools exist is for children to learn and for the teachers and the staff to be able to support that mission. When there is no environment of safety or respectful learning, or respect, that learning cannot take place for any student. It is our belief that AB 194 strengthens student and staff safety and therefore enables a stronger, more stable learning environment to our schools. The state of Nevada has a law that all children must be educated. We are not here to throw away children. We are here to find solutions. And I hope that my life work and that my reputation precedes me and that children are of utmost importance. They literally are the children of God. And so we are here to address specific concerns and to provide safety nets for children that need it. And so we look forward to presenting this bill and addressing any questions and concerns.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair and Vice Chair. I'm Assemblywoman Selena Torres, and I proudly represent Assembly District 3 in the heart of Las Vegas, Nevada, and I'm honored to be here today in support of AB 194. And I want to thank first the bill sponsor, Assemblywoman Hansen, who reached out to me during the interim so that we could begin conversations about some of this work. And I think it's critical to talk about some of the history of this legislation. When we brought AB 168, and I referenced this earlier in today's committee meeting, we had many conversations about what that rollout would look like. And I know we have a number of freshman legislators, and I'm sure you all will get to see this as well, that sometimes the conversations about what's going to happen after a bill is implemented turns out not to be actually what's implemented. And I was part of many of those conversations for AB 168, and I actually presented the bill in the Senate. And so I was very much a part of those conversations. And unfortunately, I think that there's still a lot of work that we can do around restorative justice policy. But if I'm being abundantly honest, I think that this legislation isn't really about restorative justice. This is looking at specifically the tools that administrators have to keep their campuses safe. I think, earlier today we did hear a bill that talks about restorative justice practice, talks about teacher training, that talks about those policies in place. And I understand how critical it is that we have that conversation. But quite honestly, this piece of legislation is really looking specifically at just the school discipline situation. I agree that we have to have these conversations. These conversations can't be had in silos, but that's why we're all on this esteemed committee, is because we're here to have those conversations. So this might be one part of the puzzle, but I know that we're going to continue looking at legislation that deal with other parts of that puzzle as well. Additionally, this is about giving our administrators the tools and resources that they need to keep their campuses safe. And that's the dialogue that I think we want to open up today. I think in my conversations with Assemblywoman Hansen and I, we recognize that there's probably still more work to do, that this bill isn't going to fix it all. But I think that this is opening up the dialogue, and we look forward to continuing to work with stakeholders on legislation that is going to continue to keep our campuses safe. And at this time, we'll invite Principal Kirk and Mr. Jensen.
All right, thank you, this esteemed committee and Madam Chair. My name is Daniel Kirk, D-A-N-I-E-L-K-I-R-K. I am as previously stated, I am the principal at Lemon Valley Elementary School in Washoe County School District. I'm also a board member of WESPA, which is Washoe Schools Administrators Association, Principals Association. I am here to speak from the lens as an administrator in support of this bill. As stated by Assemblywoman Torres, This is to give us the ability to keep our schools, our staff, and all of our students safe in the ways through many opportunities to really support our students and restore their ability to be participants in our school communities, as well as the students that are exposed to those traumas and those instances of behaviors, and as well as our staff. I have been a principal at what I would say is, for 9 years, I have been at the highest needs elementary schools within Washoe County School District. I have been the victim myself of ensuring safety for my staff. I put myself first before my students and my staff to ensure their safety is utmost and forefront. I have been the victim of multiple assaults by one student. Over 150 times I was assaulted in a 25-minute period, protecting students on a school bus for 25 minutes. That instance resulted in some very difficult situations where the previous law of 2019 prevented any ability for me as an administrator to keep my teachers and my students safe from that situation, and was very difficult for my staff and my students to be traumatized by that situation. I have been the victim of ensuring that my teachers, there were several other examples that similarly have happened for me as well, to where I have pregnant staff members that are needing a student removed because they are being violent towards them and harming them. And so it's my job to be that person to protect my staff and my students. I am in such support of this bill because safety is my utmost priority as an administrator. I am an advocate for all of my students. Of all of the high need schools I have been in, I also have my own children go to my school that I am the principal at as well. And they have been victims of violent behavior from students, and it is my necessary support to this bill. We need the tools and the opportunity to give students either suspension, whether that's temporary or that is extended, or expulsion or permanent expulsion, to ensure that we have the ability to provide that safety for our staff and our students. And so it's really an opportunity for us as administrators to be able to work through those behaviors that we see on a daily basis in our schools, and to ensure that we are able to restore all of those relationships from the victims, from the offenders of our students, as well as our staff as well, and finding the ways to create plans to ensure that restorative practices are in place when we have violent behavior with our students.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Will Jensen, for the record, Assistant Superintendent in the Humboldt County, and as mentioned, formerly have come before you lots and lots of times. I think we did some great stuff in 2017 for students with disabilities and graduation. I'll go through just a little bit how the bill works technically. And go over the intent a little bit in case technically we didn't get some things right. You can help us with that. This bill is intended to provide school districts, school boards, and licensed school administrators with legislatively provided tools to address instances of school violence against student and staff. The need to ensure safety for children attending school and those who work at the school are urgent. Everyone has the right to be free from violent acts of others. This bill will permit the removal of any student of any age for acts of violence with certain limitations. In addition, this bill is intended as the safety bill to acknowledge the inherently dangerous behavior involved with the sale or distribution of controlled substances by permitting the removal of any student of any age for this misconduct with certain limitations. To ensure that the superintendents are adequately informed about expulsion within the school, the bill also requires that superintendents be notified within 3 school days of any proposed expulsion or permanent expulsion. Finally, previous law authorized the Board of Trustees or its designee to complete tasks relating to reviewing, authorizing, approving, and determining various acts. This bill is intended to promote efficiency by replacing the Board of Trustees or its designee with superintendent and his or her designee to complete tasks. I'm going to go through the sections. I went through the sections. I'm going to go through them in related disciplinary pieces, so the pagination's going to be a little bit off, okay? Just preparing you for that when you look at me and it's not matching. Section 2, subsection 1 separates battery of an employee from sale or distribution of a controlled substance. That's for efficiency and also so that we can better understand those laws in schools, to make it a little bit more clear. They were joined together when we had mandatory disciplines in school, and I think it's probably appropriate to disjoin them at this time. Section 2, subsection 14 defines acts of violence. Section 2, subsection 2 creates a new section that prohibits acts of violence against student and staff. Section 2, subsection 2 allows for out-of-school removal of any student of any age, including students with disabilities who have committed an act of violence against another student or staff. However, no student under the age of 6 will be permanently expelled from school for an act of violence. The superintendent or his or her designee must review and approve suspensions or expulsions of a student under the age of 6. That's a suspensions and expulsions of students under the age of 6. And please remember, we're only talking about violent acts, and we're only talking about drug distribution at school. We also emphasize that in accordance with federal law, any student with a disability must continue to receive a free, appropriate public education on the 11th day of school. On the 11th day, during any subsequent, let me do that over for you. We also emphasize that in accordance with federal law, any student with a disability must continue to receive a free, appropriate public education on the 11th school day and any subsequent removal in that year. Now we go back, and the same things are true for the distribution or sale of drugs. Section 2, subsection 1 allows for the out-of-school removal at any age, and the same provisions apply. No student under the age of 6 will be permanently expelled from school. Sale or distribution of a controlled substance. The superintendent or his designee must review and approve any suspension or expulsion of a student under the age of 6 for sale or distribution of a controlled substance. We also emphasize that in accordance with federal law, on the 11th day of any removal in that year, education must be provided. In sections 1, 2, and 3, various revisions were made so that the superintendent or his or her designee is in the decision-making seat when it comes to reviewing, authorizing, approving, and determining various actions that already existed in statute but were previously assigned to the Board of Trustees or its designee. The Board of Trustees remains the authority for provisions that relate to the development of policy that will guide decision-making. That's how the bill works. I'm happy about the discussion overall. I wouldn't want this to be any lighter of a discussion. We're talking about the future of children and what schools are doing to foster something more positive for those children. The school-to-prison pipeline, that's troubling for me. I want no part of any of that, right? But I have to help us understand, right, that there's a whole other part of this discussion that we have to have, and we kind of have it skirting around it a little bit, and I think we just won't delve in, and I'm just going to do it right now. I agree that there are disproportionate numbers of removals based on factors in zip codes. There's no doubt that the data shows that, absolutely. But I'll say this, if there are disproportionate number of removals for acts of violence in a school, there are disproportionate number of victims in that same zip code. And I believe wholeheartedly that our system owes both the victim and the aggressor education. We're not washing our hands of kids, but let's don't disillusion ourselves with what's happening. When we say the kids remain in school, no matter what, don't assume that classroom is functioning in tip-top shape, because it is not. Not for the one student, not for the one, sometimes 4 adults in the room, but a lot of times for the 20 other kids that come to school and be subject to what's akin to domestic violence on a regular basis. We have to do something, I don't know. We came in 2017 and said, hey, our graduation system for students with disabilities isn't working. I came here, we worked on it together with the late Assemblyman. We worked on that together and we got it done, and we made a better place for kids to go to school. The restorative justice approaches that we're using are phenomenal in some cases, and I'm not baby in bathwater. It's going well some places, not going well other places. Some principals are killing it, making it happen, and other principals, maybe not, I don't know. But I can tell you there's a lot of good that come out of all of that. And some of that good we can rest upon as we make these changes moving forward to something better. I believe the dream was for better schools, for all kids. I was here, and I think that was the dream. We went through that session, we got into a major pandemic. We came out of that session, and frankly, we didn't understand all the bill in school. We didn't understand the implementation. We went back at the NDE. We brought you AB 67, I hope. I think that's the number, which provided clarification. And we implemented it. And I'm telling you that the implementation is not going 100% well. And at some point, the cartwheels, like those kind of things, the inability for someone to be able to provide a supportive classroom environment, we can work on all of that. We can get at it 100%. We might not even need y'all to do anything legal. Like, we can do some of that. The violence we cannot abide. I've got teachers on the verge of leaving the profession, like on a regular basis. And I'm not saying this as some political tool to try and sway you. I'm telling you, in the Humboldt County School District, I've got teachers in tears in my office on a regular basis. And I think they can tolerate all kinds of us going through growing pains as we build a better system together. But they can't tolerate being hit and then having that student know and understand that there's little to nothing we can do about that violence, right? They can't be disciplined to the same extent as an older child would be in that, and they know and understand that, and that's dangerous. It is dangerous for us to place people in authority, have them struck in the face, knocked out. He didn't tell you, look, he's got teeth issues, like his teeth got hit. He had to see a dentist over that. That we can't do. And it is dangerous when Principal Kirk is in his uniform, representing authority in the state of Nevada, and he's struck, and that child knows and understands little to nothing happened, because that child, disabilities, not disabilities, that child could translate that to another person in authority. And that person can be a police officer. If we can't, at the end of an educational cycle, if we can't have a system that at the very least, you can get pulled over by the police and we've scaled up your education enough to where you're not going to have a volatile reaction to authority, we may just keep you alive. And so those are the reasons that we're bringing the bill. And I don't know, I probably took all the time or something, but that, thank you.
Are you ready to stand for questions? Okay, thank you, and thank you for your passion. I mean, that's the thing with education, right? We've all been there. We've all been through school. We've all had our kids in school. It's deeply personal for all of us, but you were, there. So I appreciate it. I get it. So, okay, we have a few questions, and I know we're going to lose a couple committee members, not only to revenue, because revenue was canceled, but legislative operations. I will get you in one moment. So I'm going to go to Assemblyman De Silva first, and then I'm going to go to Assemblywoman Anderson because you have a subcommittee, and then I'll move on from there. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Assemblywomen Hanson and Torres, for bringing this bill and sponsoring this bill. And Mr. Kirk and Mr. Jensen, deeply, deeply stirred by your passion. Thank you for bringing passion to this issue. Education is an issue that I, as well as all of us on this board, care about deeply as well. I know these are tough conversations. But my real question is this, and I'm speaking as a teacher. What does it look like, in regards to these students' educations post-expulsion? Has there been any specific thought given to that matter, or any specifics that you can give to us as to what kind of plans you may implement in your school district or at your school for these students after they have been expelled? Thank you.
I think we both, Will Jensen, for the record, I think we both, did you want me to go? You just pushed me. So in Humboldt County School District, students who are expelled, even students who are expelled for very egregious offenses, we're in the middle, Winnemucca, you pass it, right? We don't have a lot of other buildings available for students, so we offer an alternative education opportunity for those students, most of the time coupled with mental health supports. We usually tag those together. One comes with the other, and they're not, you can't just pick one or the other as one option. And most students, and we have limited expulsions, but most students, the families of most students take us up on that offer.
Yeah, thank you for your question, Daniel Kirk. So prior to the age restriction of the 2019, a clear good example is I had a third grade student. He became very violent towards staff and his students, disrupting the classroom, throwing things. He nearly broke my dean of students' leg with a chair, an 8-year-old. And so prior to this kind of restriction of the 2019, he was provided an alternate education at a different location, a different site within our school district. There are other available options to families. They can homeschool, they can go to a state charter school or as well as a private school. But in this particular situation, he spent a quarter of his third grade year in this alternate setting education, building his skills relative to his behavior and developing appropriate behavior skills within some restorative practice, SEL. All of those things were provided in this alternate setting, as well as that equal opportunity to education. Come his second semester of his fourth grade year, he returned to our school, and we developed plans and systems to really restore his return and restore the relationship of his peers as well as his teachers and the adults that he would interact with. So districts have the systems and the plans and the ways to make it happen. It just does need to not be something that we just wash over because they are not 11 years old. Students that are below the age of 11 can still commit harmful, violent behavior, and that we do have systems within our districts to be able to support the offenders, the students that are committing these behaviors, and to restore them back to our school communities.
Assemblywoman Anderson.
Thank you, Chair. And again, love
love seeing the passion that both of you have for education. Mr. Jensen, it's always a pleasure to see you. My question has to do with, on the original bill, it's on page 5. On the amendments, it's page 4. It's the exact same language. There's been no change to this. It has to do with the meeting that takes place with the parent. There's no time frame around that in the initial language or also in the amended language. It's under number 2 in this section where it starts off with, on the bill, it'd be line 17 through 25. I didn't know if you were thinking of a specific time frame, because in the amended language, there is an 11th school day that's mentioned at the bottom of that amendment. So I didn't know if that was the same time frame you were looking at, or if you would allow the school board to make up a time frame as to by what time the parent or legal guardian needed to meet with the school. And whoever can answer it.
As a landslineatories for the record, I think that's a good point. I don't know that we added a time frame in there. So when I read that, it says just that at an activity sponsored by a public school or in a school bus, they shall meet with the school and his or her parent or legal guardian. I think that probably the language that just needs to be added is within 48 hours, within 24 hours. And that language actually might want to be considered too, that they reach out to the parent. I do know, as an educator myself, that sometimes we have a hard time getting families to come in, and we make ourselves available for that meeting, but they might not. But I definitely want to, I think we're definitely open to looking at language to add a time frame about when there should be reach out and by what time that meeting should be attempted to be scheduled.
Follow up, if I may? Thank you. Thank you so much for that, because the other question, you can stay up here, Assemblymember Torres, has to do actually with the next section as well, under number 3. If you're looking at the amended, it's actually going to be on page 5, where it states an employee of the school who is a victim of an act of violence, with the new language, may appeal to the school the plan of action. Would that be the school leadership, or is there any way that that could possibly also be appealed to a higher level? Because sometimes, quite frankly, I think it'd be better to have it appealed to the school district or the school superintendent or their designee. But I am open to whatever you've decided to utilize for the word school, which is in the original language, which is probably why it states school.
As a landslineatories for the record, I would have to look at that specific chapter of the NRS right now, but it might make more sense for us to have language in there that requires them to appeal to whatever the HR system would be too. But I definitely would want to have that conversation with our labor organizations as well and see kind of what their opinion of where that should go.
100% agree, and so I'm more than happy to continue the conversations offline. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, and I think we're going to lose a couple members. You can stay for, okay. You're going to go ahead and go? Okay. Okay. Okay, we'll go to Assemblywoman Mosca.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, bill sponsors, for this bill. I'm so glad to see you again, Assistant Superintendent Jensen. I went to Humboldt County and got to see you in action and see your values at work in Winnemucca. So I know what you value, but my question was really around right now. How is the data? It's going to be the same question. How are we showing the data of who this is happening to, especially as we heard earlier, our young people on IEPs, the racial data, free and reduced lunch, homeless, or foster youth, and how would that change as well if these were added?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Daniel Kirk. So all of our school districts by law are required to use what we call Infinite Campus. That is our behavior reporting system. It's our grade book. It houses all of that information. The second that an administrator logs a major behavior, that student's profile is pulled into that behavior, and then that data reports out through the Infinite Campus system and can show which, types of students, whether they're a student with an IEP, they're a student that is CIT, child in transit, or if of their race, the student's race. And so that system of Infinite Campus is our housing of our data, and each district reports that data out through multiple sources of data that we report out and share. Most of us Title I schools are required to report that on our website with our school performance plans.
So Lynn Torres for the record, and to add on to that, so I don't remember if it was in the 2019 or 2021 legislative cycle, but we did require the school districts to be aggregating this data and then disaggregating it for during school board meetings. That being said, I don't know that that has been happening. I'm happy to continue this conversation. Additionally, I think that there would be room to include like language regarding possibly like requiring that report to be reported to the interim committee on education, and then putting a deadline of when, so that each year that report was presented to this body as well. Because I know from our conversations in Southern Nevada that those reports were not being aggregated, and that's the responsibility of the districts. That really isn't the responsibility of an individual school.
Thank you. A couple of things before we go to the next question. One, I think that's an excellent idea about having, so we'll go ahead and incorporate that in. Anecdotally, I have heard from teachers that they're asked by their administration not to put incidents on Infinite Campus. I'm hearing some right up here. So we have a lot of teachers. So sounds like that is happening. I don't know if you want to address that.
So Torres, for the record, I would think even if maybe a discipline referral wasn't being input into Infinite Campus, I believe that a suspension or expulsion would have to be logged on that system because of the way it's tracked. So from my teacher standpoint, like when I take attendance, it shows like SUS, suspended, EXP, whatever, excused absence, EXA, so I know every one. So I'm pretty sure that those would continue to be logged. Otherwise, kids would just not be showing up and we'd just be marking them absent.
Correct. I think it was the statement that they were asking those behavioral issues. The discipline isn't happening. And once again, anecdotally, I've heard it's because they're worried about their star rating.
Daniel Kirk. So teachers with Infinite Campus, they have the access to report minor behaviors. All of these behaviors, especially of violence or distribution of drugs, has nothing to do with a teacher's logging of behavior data. That is to the administrators. It is their responsibility relative to district administrative regulations, requirements that we are the ones to be logging that data. I am not aware, as an administrator of 9 years, I am not aware of any impacts of what my behaviors within my school that I'm reporting within my Infinite Campus of what's happening with our students and our student behavior has anything to do with my star rating. That has no correlation that I have ever been aware of in almost the decade I have been an administrator. So, whether that's a misconception that people are saying, oh, I'm not going to log major behaviors within my school community because it's going to change my star rating, I have never heard that is actually a correlation to the star rating system.
And thank you. And I believe you are right, but that is what is out there.
I mean, I think we could also address supplementars for the record. I think if necessary, too, you could address that just by requiring that all suspensions and expulsions were logged within that to EMS.
Yes. Okay. Next, we have Assemblyman Koenig.
Thank you, Chair. Good seeing you, Mr. Jensen. Miss working with you, and nice to see that the fire hasn't gone out. Compared to all these other heavier issues, mine is not quite as heavy, but I just have a question. So serving on the school board, we were the final say, the one that had to suspend people, and that was probably the least favorite thing that I ever had to do while I was on the school board. I mean, I suspended a good family friend's child for getting to take the pocket knife out of his pocket that he had in his pocket 24/7, except for when he was at school. Suspended a couple kids for airsoft guns. So just not a pleasant experience, but I was just wondering the logic or the reasoning behind changing the ultimate decision from the school boards to the superintendent. Thank you.
I think it Will Jensen, for the record, and I think it primarily bubbled up from the school boards and their representatives themselves. I think that more and more school boards, and I don't want to speak for all of them because I haven't spoken with all of them, but they feel that the educators are really in the best position once they pass their policy to implement those policies. So it was just about efficiency, and it came by by way of one of our collaborations over the bill. A former school board member had made that suggestion.
Next, we will go to Assemblywoman Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question, okay, I'll preface with every job that I've ever held, even my 20 years in the military, I always had my employers protect me from violence in the workplace. There was always a way to report, and I felt secure in every job that I had held. My last employment was working in the court system, and I never felt like I was, and we had some violent people in that court system that I was adjacent to, but never felt like I was subject to, I can't do anything, I'm not protected, because I always knew that my employer held me at a high level of, I was a commodity to them. They want to make sure I was protected. My question actually has to do with administration, because you're putting all of these bills forward from the legislators to say, okay, protect my employees, but you're the administrators. That is, to me, your job. And also, I'm wondering, are you speaking with other schools' principals that actually have implemented the restorative justice and SEL programs, and has that been, implemented in other schools? If it's working for 1, 2, 10 schools, why can't it work for, the 15th school? What are you trying to do as an administrator to make it better? Because, the two bills that I've seen, it's mostly, protection of teachers. And I understand that. I would never want to go into a job where, even in this building, I feel protected. I feel secure, because they make sure that I feel that way.
So Will Jensen, for the record, I'll speak to what I'm doing as an administrator. I am here. I am here, and my teachers are on the television, on the internet right now watching me. They're watching me bring their concerns forward. They're watching me be responsive to their concerns. They're watching me having engaged in a conversation and bringing that conversation to the legislative body that I believe has made tremendous efforts and progress towards our disciplinary construct in schools. But I do think that perhaps when it comes to violence and when it comes to the distribution of drugs on our campuses, we have to take a firmer stand. So I'll address that, but that's what I'm doing. And like I said, it worked for me in 2017. Right? When we came and wanted to talk about graduation reform, y'all are the ones that I came to. And I'm coming to you again with that same heart. But know that I have tons and tons and tons of teachers, parents, and frankly, students that were counting on me today to make sure that their voice is heard. And so absolutely, that's part of what I'm doing, as well as, other things. But that's the major part of what I'm doing today.
Daniel Kirk, for the record. As myself as an administrator for 9 years in Washoe County School District, as I mentioned before, I've been in the highest need schools in elementary schools within our school district. I have always personally made that priority, that it is my job to ensure the safety of my staff, and I am the person that's going to take the blunt of everything relative to what's happening with my students and the violence and the distribution of drugs and those kinds of things. That is my responsibility. And I would say, you know, I can't speak for every administrator within the state of Nevada, but I do know wholeheartedly with my heart every one of my colleagues that I would trust even my own child to go to their school. They do the same thing. They advocate for the protection of their staff, and my way of additionally protecting, similar to Mr. Jensen, is I'm here to tell my story, to be here to support that we need to take action relative to violence so that our teachers and our staff are protected from us as the administrators.
And Assemblyman Torres, for the record, and, you know, working as an educator, and I've worked at multiple schools at this point in my career, and, you know, comparing, you know, where I feel safer and where I feel less safe. And I'll be honest, I think the number one reason, you know, educators struggle to feel safe on our campus is because we don't have consistent bodies in our schools. When your school has 30% vacancies on any given day because you don't have enough licensed educators in the classroom, when we have consistent sub shortages, so we don't, like sometimes you're combining classrooms. Imagine teaching a class of 70 seventh graders, because I've done it. It's not safe. It's not safe for kids. It's not safe for teachers. It's not safe for administrators. And it's not the administrator's fault. There's just a lack of resources. When there's shortages for educators, that's on us. And that's an issue we have to address. That's not this bill. But I can tell you that there's other legislation coming that'll be addressing the teacher pipeline issues so that we can have those bodies in our classrooms. Because I do think that's the number one reason why we see an increase in violence in our schools is like the lack of consistent everyday professionals. Because having we know, I mean, our students know when you have a sub, they're significantly more likely to act up. My students did things with guest teachers that they would have never done with me in the classroom. That's just the reality. And so I do think, you know, those are other issues that we need to address, and the education issues are just so they're complicated, and there's not going to be one solution to solve these problems.
Brief follow-up, Chair, just brief. Thank you. You know, when you mention the subs and your students acting up, that goes back, you know, when I was a student, and I'm not going to date myself by saying when I was a student, you know, students acted up. My whole issue here is that this is just not a problem with students. It actually is a problem with the administration. Right now, I have Northern Nevada here in front of us. I would love to have CCSD in the South here. You know, right now, if we made a decision right now on this bill, we don't have I would say, a collective. I don't know whether or not you invited CCSD here.
Assemblywoman, CCSD is here. They were just not part of this presentation.
Yeah, we were. If I could just respond to, so it's a.
Appreciate that.
We attempted to have like a presentation from both an urban school district as well as a rural district. Myself being from Southern Nevada, to kind of help make sure that there was diversity in this presentation as well. Additionally, you know, I did have conversations. There was a retired AP. She just retired last year, so it's not long ago, that I had a conversation with about specifically this bill. But there was a family emergency and she had to leave the country. So there definitely have been conversations. And, you know, I know that the Association of Principals has met with about this piece of legislation as well, and they're a statewide association. So rest assured that we're having this conversation with individuals from across the state.
Okay, and I think our final question comes from Assemblywoman LaRue Hatch.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for addressing this very serious issue that I think we need to be looking at. And thank you, Mr. Jensen, especially for truly hearing your educators and speaking for your educators and listening to what's actually happening in our classrooms. And I think we've had a lot of really important things said today that I would just like to highlight before I say my question. But Dr. Dupree mentioned an abusive relationship. Our teachers are in an abusive relationship. They are being assaulted regularly and they stay for the kids, right? You're being assaulted regularly and you stay for the kids. And we have teachers leaving, but I would point out they're not just leaving because of their physical injuries. They're leaving because of the moral injury. We are forcing them to participate in a system in which children are harmed. And I think you were very right to point out that keeping the one child in that is assaulting their teacher is traumatizing the 20 other and is preventing the 20 other from being educated. So some may look at this as a teacher rights bill, but I look at it as a learning conditions bill. And I am really thankful that you are bringing that. And that brings me to my question, which is a follow-up to my colleagues of, can you please speak to why this is an issue that we have to address as a state and not something that can be done on a school by school or district by district basis?
Will Jensen, for the record. I think in terms of its relationship with the bill, it has to do with the law. I think currently we have a whole group of licensed administrators who go to school for a tremendous length of time at great expense. I can testify to that truthfully and honestly, experientially. Who we train to make these kind of decisions. I mean, this is part of what we license them for, but right now I feel like they don't have a full breadth of tools in their toolbox in order to help keep that campus safe and also work restoratively with the student who is having the struggle in the first place. So I think it has to do with the laws over the last 2 sessions as they pertain to the bill.
Are you good? All right. Well, I ask you to sit back and we will open it up for testimony. Testimony in support. Make your way up to the seats. If there's anyone in Vegas who is there for support, if you want to fill up those seats, it doesn't look like you guys are moving, so we'll start up here.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and Committee. My name is Lynn Chapman, and I'm the State Vice President of Nevada Families for Freedom. And we're in support of this bill and encouraged to see that this issue is being discussed in our state legislature. It has been an escalating problem for quite a number of years. Quote, feeling safe at school is as important to a child's well-being and learning as being safe. Children learn more and perform at higher levels when they feel emotionally safe, unquote, writes Dr. Nora Carr, Chief of Staff at Guilford County Schools in North Carolina. Anne Louise Lockhart, a PSYD and an ABPP, which I don't know what that is, wrote how school violence affects everyone. It impacts children committing the violence, children who are victimized, children who witness school violence, and even impacts school employees and parents. The Crime and Safety Surveys program reported that during the 2019-2020 school year, 77% of public schools recorded that one or more incidents of crime had taken place, amounting to 1.4 million incidents. This translates into a rate of 29 incidents per 1,000 students enrolled in 2019-2020. Not all recorded incidents of crimes were reported to sworn law enforcement. The sooner children learn there are consequences to their actions, the better for the children's futures. Please pass this legislation. It's a good start to the solutions we need to pursue reducing the violence that is out of control in our schools. Our children need us to feel safe and have a safe learning environment, and teachers need to have a safe place to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chapman. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. Dawn Echeverry, President of the Nevada State Education Association. We stand in support of AB 194, and I would refer you to the comments made earlier by my colleague, Alex Marks.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. For the record, Dylan Shaver with Pinion Public Affairs on behalf of the Washoe County School District today, here in support of Assembly Bill 194, and I hope by implication, given that a number of our staff helped present the bill, Assembly Bill 285 as well. The Washoe County School District platform focuses on two things that come forward in each of these bills. One is to give teachers and administrators the support they need to maintain a safe and respectful learning environment. That is absolutely critical from the school board on down, as Dr. Taylor assuredly knows. And the second, of course, is maintaining classrooms where students have the ability to thrive. While we can focus on a number of reasons that have gotten our classrooms to this place, it is our responsibility to step up and support policies that will help turn that around, and we believe each of these bills are part of that strategy. Thank you so much for your time today. My own daughter turns 7 this evening, and so with your permission, I will take my leave of you and your committee, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Kaylin Evans. I'm the president of the Washoe Education Association, and we represent the certified professionals in the Washoe County School District. I'm here today speaking in support of this bill. There's been a lot of discussions around oppositions to both bills that were heard today, and we understand this, and I think it's extremely important that everybody understand, and on the record, that no teacher ever wants a child to be removed from their classroom. We understand that the options available in some areas might not be what they need to be, so that we need to do a better job at making sure that we are providing these alternative placements and supports, because the reality that we have right now going on is that many of these classrooms do not have the supports and resources available to them to provide for the needs of these students. And so it's extremely important that, yes, training is an absolute, and that there are good things about the restorative practices that we need to keep and implement. And I think both of these bills, no one is discarding those. We are saying that there are elements of them that we need to use, and we need to make sure that we are growing from these. And then we need to continue to look at how there's two sides of this coin, that we are doing everything we can with preventative measures to make sure that we are providing our students with the resources and tools, and we're providing the training for our administrators and our staff to best support these students, but we are also providing the districts with the latitude to make the decisions that are the best for the entire school body. And so it's extremely important that we see this, and I want to be on the record to understand that the first and foremost, teachers want to be with their students, supporting every single one of them. But the reality is that because of a very, very small percentage of them, we are losing the herd. And we need to make sure we are doing everything to systematically address this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee. For the record, my name is Mary Przinski, here representing Nevada Association of School Superintendents, an organization that's composed of all 17 superintendents. And as we said previously this afternoon, the superintendents believe that there needs to be law and order in their schools, but also with the understanding that some students need more than what others do. And I think part of the issue here is training. We need a little more training, and there are so many good things about restorative justice, but implementation has been tough, and there have been a lot of unintended consequences. So hopefully these bills and these discussions at this session, there are lots of them on restorative justice, will help bring everything together so it's better for the students and for our faculty and staff members. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair and members of the committee. Again, for the record, my name is KB Mejia, K-E-I-B-I, M-E-J-I-A, and I'm with the Ferrado Company representing the Nevada Association of School Boards. NASB supports AB 194, and we echo the comments of our colleague from the Nevada Association of School Superintendents. Thanks to the sponsor for bringing this bill forward, and we urge your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you begin, I'm just going to go and make sure there's no one in Vegas. There's no one in Vegas, correct? Oh. I mean, I see that there's someone in Vegas, but you're not there to testify. Okay. All right, great. Please go ahead.
You got Don
Wait,
Yalom.
someone is coming up. Sorry.
Go
Two
for
people
it.
are coming up. Sorry. All right. So you are in support. You're not in support. Okay.
Okay, hello, sorry, I don't, the confusion. We're wanting to speak in opposition, so we weren't sure if
Okay.
that was now. Or
Okay.
later.
No, we're still in
Okay,
support.
sorry.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Don Gallimore Sr., speaking on behalf of the Reno Sparks NAACP, and we're supporting this bill right now. We support both bills. Something needs to be done. Our teachers are in jeopardy, and our pupils are not learning anything at all. The opposition arguments seem to be basically about implementation and enforcement. So those things, I believe, can be at least looked at in terms of the existing laws. These two laws, I would hope that sponsors can come together and make this one law, and that would be 194 and 285. So I think that there's language that's very similar and can be adjudicated that way. But the root causes and the enforcement, of course, are economic, educational, and about the internet. We haven't spoken enough about how the social media affects our children and affects their behavior between each other. And so that's something that I think we need to delve into with this bill a little bit more. Data privacy with my membership with Protect Nevada Children. I've been doing this since 2009. In 2011, we realized that there needs to be something there. And SEL, social emotional learning, we cannot stand it, so I don't think it should be applicable. Reading and writing and arithmetic is the educational system's responsibility, and I don't know if we have achieved that with SEL. At some point, if we're looking at all the economic improprieties and inequities, reparations is going to have to be at some point a part of this discussion, and it will allow children to feel a little more equal. Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Mrs. Rachel Puena, Puaina. I would like to also address what Assemblywoman Thomas was concerned about how is this not on the administrators. I agree. But I think what they need is the support in implementing. I agree with the bill, but I think we do need the support from the administrators, that they have whatever tools that they need to help implement it on campus and have the teachers follow through with it. So it will help. All right, thank you.
Okay, we'll take you two, and then we do need to go to the phones as well.
Thank you. For the record, Andrew Fueling, Superintendent for Carson City School District. In support of the bill, just wanted to give a quick story of that support. So I'm new superintendent, and in my first month of school being back, went around to have 29 listening sessions across our 10 schools here in Carson City. Within the first month of school, going to one of those meetings at an elementary school just down the way, had a teacher that had just come back from her classroom that had been completely destroyed by a student after her being hit. They had to evacuate the room, students crying, and she came into that meeting in tears, and her greatest concern wasn't actually her own safety, but what her students saw and how they were reacting and how they were going to respond the next day. And it happened again later, another day. So these are the types of things that we're seeing, and staff members with broken orbitals, getting head-butted, students whacking their teacher across the face with a broom and having them fall backwards and trip and fall. It's serious everywhere in the state. And so anything to do to potentially help give more options would be appreciated. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Patricia Haddad, Director of Government Relations for the Clark County School District. Also in support, just wanted to clarify that Nevada Association of School Superintendents, Mary Brzezinski, were in agreement with her support testimony, so ditto on that. We have been in the room. I have additional information to provide. I was planning to provide that during public comment, but wanted to ensure that we got on the record that we are supportive of adjustments to restorative justice, recognizing that there are some changes that need to be made in order to ensure that our students and our adults at our school sites are safe. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will go to the phone lines. BPS, do we have any callers in support?
Callers, if you would like to testify in support of AB 194, please press *9 to take your place in the queue.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead, caller.
Okay. My name is Renee Rezentes, Rezentes, and I am in support of this bill, but I think it needs a little bit of tweaking. There's no accountability to the school district when the students go out to lunch in high school or middle school. I don't know if they do in middle school. But the open campus, with the open campus, there is no supervision for the kids. And I saw an incident across the street from Reed High School where at least 5 boys, maybe 6, were manhandling a girl. They had her by her hair. They were throwing her around, passing her back and forth. The police finally came. I was outside in the parking lot at Big R, and they talked to the kids, and then they left. And then they started fighting again, doing the same thing. So I think this is not being concerned for the health and safety of our children. The school district, if they are not responsible for them during the lunch hour, I think they need to close the campuses, and so that they have supervision and they're safe. Also, this could have started with on the ground, school grounds, and then took it outside, and then they go back onto the school grounds.
I'm going to interrupt you. I just need you to speak to the bill, and there's nothing in the bill about open campuses. If you want to speak to being in support of the bill, I'm going to have you need to speak directly to the bill.
There needs to be an amendment.
Okay, so that would not be in support then. We will mark you in opposition.
No, I'm in support of everything except that this needs to be included.
I appreciate that. Our rules of the committee is that you are in support of the bill as written. So if you want to make changes to the bill, then you are technically in opposition. So I'm sorry for the nitpickiness, but that is the rules of our committee. So, but we will make sure we have your information down that you are that specific area you are concerned about.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have another caller in support?
Caller, please press *6 to unmute your microphone.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Carrie Finn, and I'm a clinical aide in the health office at Pioneer Academy in Carson City. I'm also the president of the Carson Educational Support Association. I am speaking today in support of Assembly Bill 194. As a healthcare professional, I have worked district-wide at many schools, and it is not uncommon for me to have to render first aid to different staff members who often come to me in tears. Staff members come to me who have been bit, hit, punched, choked, kicked, and pinched. They come to me with concussions and other head injuries, broken bones, and bruises from being thrown against the wall or having objects thrown at them by students. If that's not bad enough, despite all of that, there are little or no consequences at all for the students who harm our staff. Staff cannot even press charges against a student who assaults them when no markings or bruises are left when breaking up a fight, even if the footage is caught on film. Violence against staff is at an all-time high and behaviors are escalating. Throughout the state, educators are one more violent incident away from leaving this profession forever. Physical abuse is not in the job description for an education support professional, teacher, or administrator. As educators, we are constantly told that we must provide a safe, respectful learning environment for students. But what are legislators doing to provide a safe, respectful work environment for educators in Nevada? In 2019, the Nevada State Education Association warned what could happen if restorative practices were implemented with the lack of funding, guidance, and instruction. Unfortunately, 4 years later, now we know. The current restorative practices Nevada has in place are not working and need to be fixed. The time for change is now. Educators have spoken a great deal about respect this session. Many of you are likely aware of our campaign called the Respect Educators Act. One of the largest components of the Respect Educators Act is about safety. Assembly Bills 194 and 285 will deliver real accountability for any violence committed against us and give all educators the tools necessary to deal with disruptive behavior. Passing this bill goes a long way to show educators the respect we deserve. In closing, please consider the ramifications to public education and our educator safety across the state of Nevada if restorative practice laws do not change. I urge you to respect educators and pass Assembly Bill 194. Thank you.
Thank you for the call. BPS, anyone else in support?
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Schumann. I am an education support professional in Clark County. Today I will be speaking in favor of AB 194. It doesn't take I believe that this bill is one that needs to be, that AB 194 is one that needs to be addressed the sooner the better. I've heard a lot about our teachers and administrators being assaulted, but unfortunately, it doesn't stop there. In Clark County, we have had our paras, our bus drivers, our custodians attacked as well. I believe these kids come to school behaving as they do because this is what they get away with at home or with their friends. Maybe some thought should be put forward to forming education classes for our parents on how to train their students to show respect to others. I have heard many people say tonight that I've heard many people say tonight that the last thing they want to do is to lose students from their classes. I couldn't agree more. Our kids need to be in the classrooms. They need to get the work and the playtime with their friends, maybe to train them to get along better. But unfortunately, one teacher is not just enough for a class size of 30 to 40. My suggestion is that when time for 20 is presented, that we put our heads together and see if we can't pass this bill along with AB 194 tonight. Keeping class sizes down to 20 might surely help. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. And with that, we are at 20 minutes for support, so we will move to opposition. If you are in opposition of this bill, please fill up the tables. I see 3 people in Las Vegas, just with a nod or a thumbs up. Is that all of you that are wishing to speak in opposition, or is there more? That's okay. Then why don't you guys go ahead in Las Vegas?
Dr. Kyle Rogers for the record, Kylerogers. I'm going to start with the story. I used to be a foster parent of 4 years until this last summer when I stopped. I want to talk about my very last foster kid who aged out. He has experienced a lot being in foster care, obviously, and prior to foster care. He is someone who has been stabbed. He has been shot. When I walk around the house, when I was heading down to the hallway to the living room and I knew he was in the living room, I would need to tap the wall as I walk by, because if I just suddenly show up in the living room, he will jump. He will be scared. He has diagnosed PTSD. And one day, he stupidly decided to bring a kitchen knife to school. Those are the kinds of kids we're talking about, and those are the stories you have heard none of today. And there are many like that. Again, I work at a behavior school, and I see these kinds of stories all the time, and it's a problem. Something I've learned from being in the behavior schools, and something that hasn't been addressed in this bill, and it is deeply concerning, is who counts as fighting? If I am pushed by a student, and then I decide to go push that student back, am I now suspended? Am I expelled? At what point do we just not allow all self-defense? Because I'm going to let you know right now in CCSD, any act of self-defense counts as fighting. Any single act. And I am sure that is probably true across the state. Because how do you decide? Who's the true instigator, right? Another issue I want to bring up, as it was discussed, is it the admin are not following policies? And I want to be very clear that is the vast majority of what the issue is. Here's an interesting fact that I don't know why teachers don't know this since they have such an issue. NRS 392-4648 states that if a teacher disagrees with a student being sent to their classroom after they've already sent them out, there's supposed to be a meeting of a committee made up of partially teachers to discuss if that was the appropriate decision made by that admin. I want to ask you, do you know of any school where this committee exists? Why have all of these teachers not mentioned this committee? It is required that this committee exist for every single school, but it's not been mentioned once today. I would love to see if the gentleman from Washoe, who is advocating for his teachers, does his school have this committee active? And do they meet to discuss when a teacher disagrees? Because by law, that is something a teacher has the right to. Now, I'm obviously someone who wants to see kids in school, so I'm not particularly interested in policies that push kids out like that one. But they do have that right, and it's interesting that it hasn't been brought up, as it is in the law. Lastly, I want to bring up is that if we're going to start suspending kids under a certain age, we're not going to get accurate data for kids with disabilities because they're not being identified until a couple of years into their school. So if we're suspending first and second graders, we're not going to actually have accurate data about how many kids with disabilities are being suspended anymore, because that's going to skew the data downward, right? And so that's another issue that drastically needs to be addressed. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next person in Vegas.
Yesenia Gonzalez for the record, Yesenia Gonzales. I want to reiterate something that Dr. Rogers mentioned about the age. Many children with disabilities go misdiagnosed or not properly assessed by the district, and it is a very difficult thing to do with the district to get a proper assessment. Back when my child was assessed, at the age of 3, he was a developmental delay. It took another 3 years for my child to be properly assessed and be told that our son is autistic. Now, if you want to sit there and punish a child with disabilities because the school did not know how to properly address a situation, allow a student to get to the point where it escalates to where they have a behavioral incident due to something that pertains to a disability, that's a big problem, because you're going after a child with disabilities, and that's something that, yes, they do have laws that protect them as idea. And in my case, with my child who was attacked in 2021, we really had no justice for him. In that incident, the school said that my son was involved in an altercation. They flipped it on my child, but however, there was video footage of my child being viciously attacked from behind. That was his saving grace. So unfortunately, that's something that also needs to be addressed. To the gentleman that made the comment about sending our kids to private schools, do you have the money to send our kids? Are you going to give us those vouchers? What happens when they don't have those people that can accommodate our children with special needs? Because many of these private charter schools cannot accommodate our special needs children whatsoever. It is a very disheartening thing to hear as a parent of a special needs child. As a student that was a former here in CCSD that is also autistic. Not a comment that we would like to hear someone in Carson City mentioning. So this is a bill that I cannot support because the language is very tricky, but it comes off as if it's going to really attack our special needs children. And those are our children that we really need to protect and give them a voice when something happens. We need the district to properly assess. We need IEPs, 504s in place. And we need to really do something about this because honestly, if you guys would have approved this bill back then, my child would have been disciplined and he was the victim of a heinous crime that we actually pursued to the DA's office, and we actually did not have justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Next person in Las Vegas.
Anna Binder for the record again, ANNABINDER. What has hugely been lacking from today's conversation is parents and children. I do appreciate those that are standing up for our children, but when I signed in today, on your little log where it says, who are you here representing? I'm the only one who wrote in children. None of us have a magical answer, right? Things need to be done, but our youngest, most vulnerable children need us to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. And we will go up here. We'll be in Carson City. Please go ahead, Ms. Wellborn.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair and members of the committee. My name is Holly Wellborn, Executive Director of the Children's Advocacy Alliance, representing all the children. For the record. I want to go through the amendment. I'm referring specifically to the amendment. I'll be a little more technical this time. So with the change of splitting out distribution of a controlled substance from violent behavior, I first want to address that we're changing that to a child of any age who distributes drugs. That causes me to think through several items. Why would a child under the age of 11 be distributing drugs in an elementary school setting? It seems that there's a lot more happening there, and perhaps this child is being victimized or exploited in some way, and a path to permanent expulsion would seem quite inappropriate in that circumstance. So that's one thing that I think about and a basis for opposition today. I appreciate Assemblywoman Hansen and Assemblywoman Torres for some of the changes that they're making here. The original bill did have some Individuals with Disabilities Education Act issues, and I think that it was cleared up. But I do want to address the disability issue in Section 2, Sub 1C, that it provides, in accordance with law, IDEA, that a child who is removed from school receive a free, appropriate public education in accordance with IDEA by the 11th school day. So it's fine to have that recitation of federal law in the bill, but the practical application of that is where are the services for those disabled kids who can now be removed from programming in school. We talked a little bit about that earlier, so I would ask that the committee consider that before moving this forward. There was some increase to the age of 6 for the age limit, but again, I think we have to be incredibly careful in what we're requiring before we say that a child has to be removed from the school environment at such a vulnerable developmental age. We have to provide, if this is the direction we're going, we have to provide services for those kids. We have to provide appropriate interventions, and we are not prepared in any way, shape, or form to do that. I think that's the most pressing issues. But again, I do want to say I was a really bad kid. I don't think a lot of people know that. And every session I come here, I'm like, I'm not going to cry on the record, but I always do, and I'm thinking about Assemblyman Thompson and that legacy, and I think a lot of people are, everyone in this room is incredibly sincere in the direction that they want to go, but, I was a really bad kid in that developmental stage of my life, and I just can't imagine the direction we've gone if I had been thrown away at that period and what my life would have been like if I didn't have teachers and people who cared about what my home environment looked like. So, yeah, I just ask that you consider what the practical application of this is going to be to those young, vulnerable kids. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wilborn. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Jonathan Norman, Nevada Legal Service Providers. I was a CAP attorney for a while, so I represented kids in foster care, and I had a kid who was under the age of 11 who assaulted and battered a teacher. He had been in a general education classroom. He had one of the most complex trauma backgrounds I've ever heard. He was 8 years old, and they wanted to have him placed at Miley Achievement Academy. We fought for him to have the next, on the scale of placements, we fought for him to be on the general education campus in a classroom with a special education teacher and a teaching assistant and max 12 students. We were able to get that. 4 months later, his discipline file just kept getting thicker and thicker, and it culminated in him assaulting his teacher. Fortunately, there were no lasting damage. I share that because I found out at that point that he did not have a special education teacher in that classroom. He did not have a licensed teacher in that classroom. This classroom that was 12 students, supposed to have a special education teacher and a teaching assistant, had a teaching assistant who was being considered a long-term sub. The requirements to be a teaching assistant are a high school diploma. So my kid, with the most complex trauma history that I'd ever had, was put in a position to fail. And under this bill, he could have been permanently expelled from school. And so I appreciate these bills because they shed light, right, on what's going on in our education system. I appreciate them because they allow teachers to voice those concerns. And I appreciate both bill sponsors, 254 and 194. Assemblywoman Torres said 30% of teachers are missing from schools, and that makes schools inherently more unsafe. In addition, we have one in CCSD, and I apologize I don't have these for the state, but we have one school psychologist for almost 1,650 students, one school counselor for every 436, and one school social worker for every 1,538 students. The Nevada State Board of Education adopted standards in 2020 that said they would have one school psychologist per 500 students, one school counselor per 250 students, and one school social worker per 250 students. So when we look at how we're going to solve these problems and we're looking at permanently expelling young kids when we are not staffing our schools appropriately, I think we have to really look at and consider that. And then I appreciated the questions, I think it was Assemblyman De Silva, about what is the alternative education. And I really think we have to drill down on that. We can't just say that could be an online school. And if we're talking about kids who have complex home lives, who are maybe in a single parent home on free or reduced lunch, and we're going to have them on an iPad, and that's going to be their education. I think that's really woefully lacking. Finally, I want to thank the Nevada Current and reporter Camelot Todd, because I just Googled state of education, and that article came up. It was published this year about the numbers of students to psychologists. And so when we talk about my client and the consequences his life would have had under this bill, when we were just woefully had the professionals that we expect to have in schools were not there for that client. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Go ahead, Ms. Goins.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Aisha Goins with Black Joy Consulting on behalf of NAACP, Las Vegas, Nevada. That's AESHAGOINS. oftentimes people look at me and I can only assume the things that they're thinking, but I am a victim of child abuse. And I was taken out of the home in Washoe and also in Clark County. And what being a victim of child abuse, physical child abuse, taught me to be was a fighter in life and a fighter in the streets. And the first time I was taken out of the home was I was 8 years old. And I went to Stead Elementary at the time in Reno, Nevada. And I fought because what I understood was fighting. The second time I was taken out of home, I was 11. And I fought at Elizabeth Lynn's in Washoe County. And I fought because that's what I knew. The third time I was taken out of home is in J.D. Smith. And I fought because that's what I knew. If those teachers had thrown me away and had expelled me, I wouldn't be the advocate I am today. So I'm speaking on behalf of me and the future me's to come. If they had thrown me out, I'm urging you to consider these other children who all they know is what they've seen and what they've gone through, and that's what they're acting out. Being expelled permanently should never be an option. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gordon. I know you two are down here. We should go to the phones, though, quickly. So I think we have about 5 minutes left. So BPS, is there anyone on the phone in opposition?
Callers, if you would like to testify in opposition to AB 194, please press star 9 now to take your place in the queue.
Hello, my name is Yesenia Moya, Yesenia Moya. I'm a community organizer, educator, and artist. Why is it on our youth to make teachers, admin, staff, and other adults feel safe? Who is to be held accountable for the lack of resources, training, and support? Safety comes from creating spaces where youth can explore and simply be free. The issues in our school are systemic, and until admin, teachers, and staff decide to come together with the youth and community that upholds them, we will continue to see these kinds of policies that directly criminalize Black and brown students at the hands of teachers, staff, and admin that have internalized biases. I am a product of CCSD, and as such, I see that things have not changed with the way adults react to altercations or issues their students are dealing with. I myself went to a counselor when I was in school with thoughts of suicidal ideation. I was homeless and my parents were deported, and all that I was told was to drink water and find a buddy to feel better. Not much has changed. Our students do not feel safe with admin, teachers, and staff that do not understand them and are outright abusing their powers. From youth being expelled for something as simple as saying, damn, it smells like shit, to a 7-year-old being put in cuffs for running with safety scissors, these kinds of policies will only continue to push our youth into the juvenile justice system. Please vote no on this bill, and let's come together as a community for real solutions, not Band-Aids that blame youth and criminalize them. Thank you.
Thank you, BPS. Can we take the next caller in opposition, and then we'll come to you all in Carson.
Hello, my name is Dr. Samuel Song. I'm a professor at UNLV. I'm a school psychologist and a researcher in school violence and restorative justice. I am opposed to this bill. I believe that there's just a lot of research nationally, internationally, papers I've written summarizing the research that this is not the right move. It's educational malpractice. It is inhumane. and does not solve the problem. And so we need to continue to do restorative justice and alternative approaches to punitive discipline and support all kids. This will continue and exacerbate the disproportionality that we're seeing among children and families of color, those in a lower socioeconomic status, those with identified disabilities, and gender identity, and sexual minoritized individuals. And so please reach out to me if you want a consult, but this is not the way that we should be moving it in Nevada. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your call. We'll come back to Carson City. Mr. Pirro, go begin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Pirro from the Clark County Public Defender's Office, JOHNPIRO. I want to thank Assemblywoman Hanson. And hearing our concerns about the bill. Again, the concerns are the same as they were for AB 285. We're worried about where the children are going to go. We're worried about what's going to happen to them when they're removed from probably one of the only safe places that they know or are able to attend. Sometimes schools are the only places where kids get meals. Sometimes schools are the only places where kids get some form of love, especially the kids that we see that come through the juvenile justice system and the DCFS system. So we're hoping that we could work on a robust solution because this is a complex topic, and I don't think the bills cover the topic as robustly as they need to. Like, I think this is the type of bill that needs to have roundtable sessions with multiple parties at the table that has a plan backward for kids to get back to school, that has a plan to put open and transparent data out, that has a plan to track how we're doing. The solution needs to be more robust than these two bills contain. Thank you.
Thank you. And we are over time, but I will let you make your testimony, but then we are going to close testimony.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, members of the committee. Erica Roth, ERICAROTH, on behalf of the Washoe County Public Defender's Office. I know we've all been here a long time, so I'll keep my comments short. What I do want to say, though, and I appreciate the stories that have been shared today, I too have a similar story. And I think it's important to recognize that you're seeing professionals sitting up here. And many people don't get that opportunity. In a lot of ways, it's why I became a public defender, because I saw my own stories in my clients. And what we're doing is setting up future me's and Miss Wellborns and Miss Goins to not be able to have the opportunity to sit here and tell you those stories in the future. I've heard a lot today about how the lack of funding, guidance, and training has hindered the implementation of AB 168. The solution is not to unwind that. The solution is to provide that funding, to provide that training, and to make sure that it can be properly implemented, not to take these students out of school and out of any future endeavor that may come from that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the testimony. And with that, we will close opposition and open it to neutral. And if I could just remind what neutral is you don't really, usually from like a state agency, you don't have an opinion on the bill. You just wanted to give your neutral testimony. So if we have neutral testimony, please come. Doesn't look like anyone's coming up, and it looks like Vegas is pretty clear. Someone's actually backing up to the wall. And BPS, is there anyone on the line in neutral?
Callers, if you would like to testify in neutral for AB 194, please press *9 now to take your place in the queue.
Chair Bill Bright Axelrod and members of the Education Committee, thank you for your service and time.
Caller, you're unmuted on our end. Please go ahead.
Caller, we could hear you, but very, very softly.
Can you hear me?
That's better.
Chair Bilbray Axelrod and members of the Education Committee, thank you for your service and time today, especially in your efforts regarding the complexity and importance of safety, fair discipline, restorative justice, and social emotional learning. For the record, my name is Elena Fabunan, E-A-B-U-N-A-N, and I am a retired CCSD principal. Educators are facing enormous challenges resulting in significant stress with no end in sight. Current conditions are unsustainable, and if it continues to be left unaddressed, could result in continued teacher, administrator, support staff shortages. This will be difficult to overcome. If the primary mission of school is educational achievement for students, then to reach this goal, students and staff must feel safe, supported, and ready to learn. The rollout of restorative practices SEL Panorama was not effective, and we should stay the course, especially post-COVID. Implementation is essential, and the coordination of programs and practices is pivotal for success. With relationships and community at the heart of all restorative practices, it will present multiple opportunities to develop, practice, and reinforce the 5 SEL competencies. Restorative practices and SEL should be at the forefront of every school's mission and vision because it is the most important to address the mental and emotional needs of our students who experience trauma such as imprisonment, rape, fear, physical assault, loss of property, loss of livelihood, and many other traumatic events. Exposure to these traumatic events can interfere with learning and behavior in school and can cause symptoms like stomach aches, fear, anxiety, sadness, irritability, avoidance of thinking and talking, and trouble managing behavior. As Assemblywoman Miller so eloquently stated during SEL Week, academics cannot happen until we address the mental health of students. If implemented together and implemented well, both can help boost the same outcomes, such as improved school climate, student-to-student and student-to-teacher relationships, reduce conflicts, and decreases in exclusionary discipline practices such as suspension. Implement high-quality, evidence-based SEL training done by the state, not by school districts, together with restorative practices, and keep the requirement that each school report their data to review by the school board and place supports as needed. If we want to see positive outcomes such as improved safety, attendance, school classroom climate, and reductions in exclusionary discipline referrals and reduced disproportionality in discipline, AB 285, AB 194, should make it clear the connection between restorative practices and SEL. Thank you.
Thank you. And I think we're going to put you down in opposition. So BPS, is there any other callers in neutral?
Chair, there are no callers on the line at this time.
Okay, with that, we are going to want to come back up. Okay, come back up. Well, I mean, why not?
We're already here.
We're already here.
For the record, Assemblywoman Alexis Hansen, District 32, and I'm sorry, I know it's late. Thank you for the robust opportunity to present this bill. I appreciate all the stories we've heard, and it does not go without, deep reflection on our part. I can promise you that no child will be thrown away. That's not our intention. And as a child, an at-risk child myself, raised by a single mom, moved 17 times in 18 years, it was often the classroom that I felt most safe. So I hear those in the audience and that have called in. Appreciate the comments, appreciate your time, and especially my co-sponsor and those who've collaborated doing the work in the district. Thank you so much.
Assemblywoman Torres, for the record, I want to echo the sentiments from my colleague, and then I'll also state that we look forward to working with stakeholders so that we can have conversations about this legislation. This only is the beginning of this dialogue and this conversation. This isn't the end of it, and I know that there's still a lot of work to do when we're talking about school discipline and campus safety. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, we will close the hearing on AB 194 and move to our final agenda item, which is public comment. As a reminder, members of the public can provide public comment in person or telephonically and can submit public comment up to 24 hours after the meeting. For those wishing to provide public comment telephonically, instructions for doing so, including the phone number and meeting ID, can be found on our agenda for today's meeting on Nellis. Each person has 2 minutes to provide testimony. Please remember to clearly state and spell your name for the record. And here we go with public comment. So it looks like Vegas, there is not any, unless Did you want to provide public comment? I do see someone coming up. Okay, let's start one. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start in Carson City and then we'll head to Vegas. So Carson City, go ahead. 2 minutes each person.
My name is John Eppolito. I'm with Protect Nevada Children. I wanted to talk for just a minute about these free education vendors that have taken over our classrooms. One in particular, Kahoot. Back in May 2019, Washoe County School District sent out a memo to the teachers warning them that Kahoot, an overseas vendor, sells our children's data. 5 months after that was sent out, a kid at Bishop Minogue took a test on Kahoot. It wasn't assigned by his teacher, but the title of the test was, "Should I Kill Myself?" The next day, Caleb killed himself. My News 4 covered that here in Reno. It took another 9 months to get Kahoot out of Washoe County School District schools. That was pretty much because of us, I believe. Now, I noticed that the other day, Kahoot is still an approved vendor on Clark County School District's list. Why is that? They don't know about the suicide tests. Clark County doesn't know that this vendor sells student data, this overseas vendor. There's some kind of disconnect here. What about all the kids that took this suicide test and didn't kill themselves? Is there one kid that helped, or is all that data that these kids presented to this third-party vendor, we don't even know who has it, is that information going to come up to affect their future? We have no idea. Please think about what's going on in our schools with these free education vendors. John Eppolito, Protect Nevada Children. You can find 1,500 of us on Facebook at Protect Nevada Children. Thank you very much.
Hello again, Don Gallimore Sr., and this time I'll put on my Protect Nevada Children hat because all of what we've been talking about with the discipline and interaction with kids and teachers and everything can be led to the internet. The social media, I knew when I was bringing up my kids that the social media internet was bad. I had to go up against a lot of resentment. Our lawmakers back then, legislators, as I mentioned, I've been doing this since 2009. And 2011, the educational system I saw going out of control after our then Governor Sandoval cut $700 million from the budget. And so the internet is where is the new TV, where our kids learn all their information. They get all their communications. And right now we see that there's finally a backlash. The UK, California, Washington, other states, New York, they are seeing the vicissitudes of the internet. So I do want to point you to the public service announcements that our plethora of education technologies acknowledging their data collection in unsecured systems could pose immediate threats to the students, especially students and our elderly who are susceptible to being hacked. So when you take into consideration all of your discussions, determine how much the internet is affecting what is happening, because that is a third party, fourth party, fifth party, whatever you want to call it, that it does affect conduct and discipline. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening. Patricia Haddad, Director of Government Relations for the Clark County School District. Lots of conversations and questions that have come out throughout this hearing today, and just wanted to address two main components. I also want to add that I have a master's degree in special education for children with emotional behavioral disorders. This issue is why I got into education and education policy specifically. To be clear, so like I said earlier, I'm going to read to keep it short for you guys. So
I just do want to remind you that it's not to, we've closed those hearings,
Yes,
so,
ma'am.
okay.
Yes, ma'am. This is information in response to some questions that have come up, if that's okay. So, agree, okay, fine. So, wanted to mention that social emotional learning is a foundation around multi-tiered systems of supports. CCSD requires that all schools, in collaboration with stakeholders, implemented this district-wide framework. It's grounded in high-quality, standards-based instruction that integrates academic, social, emotional, and behavioral learning. We also leverage the Panorama Survey to provide us with student-specific information to know what SEL skills our students need to be taught. Coping skills, relationship building, social awareness, all of these things. I also want to put into context that one restorative justice legislation was passed in 2019, unfunded. CCSD pursued a competitive grant. We're in year 2 of 3 of that grant. We've had approximately 1,700 staff members trained. We've got about 70 left that are scheduled for the spring. And this all feeds into site-based groups, 5 to 6 individuals that are the restorative leadership team to support those individual school sites. So I just wanted to make that clear. I know there was a lot of things said and wanted to make sure that those things were on the record. Thank you.
Thank you for that information. And if you want to submit that, I would actually happily get that to my committee as well. Okay, we will go to Las Vegas.
Dr. Kyle Rogers for the record, KYLEROGERS. First thing I want to touch on is I'm concerned about accountability for district officials. And them not following many of the laws I've mentioned today that are not being followed. I've actually took off, I get 1 personal day a year as a teacher, and I used that 1 personal day this year to go to our Department of Ed meeting to bring up these issues. And I was basically told by them that they essentially don't have power to take action, essentially. Like there's no legal thing they can do, basically. They can go be like, hey, you should follow the law, but there's nothing they can do besides that, is my understanding of what they explained to me. And so it doesn't seem we have accountability mechanisms for district officials who are admin. It's admin who do all the legal stuff, and the school board for that part. And so something needs to be looked into for that. I'm hoping I can touch on this disproportionality with discipline, because it's not really a topic for that was in the bills. Disproportionality is massive, and we often say students of color or black and brown students. But I want to be clear, it is not students of color, it is not black and brown students, it is our black students who are uniquely disciplined. When you look at the disproportionality, at least in Clark County, for the 110,000 discipline incidences I have, it is only black students who are disproportionately disciplined. And we need to be honest about who's being targeted so we can talk about solutions. And I also want to point out that of the disproportionality there's with IEPs, 45% of the kids experiencing disproportionality who have IEPs, who are being disciplined and have IEPs, 45% of them are black students. So even again, the disproportionality we're seeing from even for our special education students might be coming largely from our black students who skewed the data so much because they're so disproportionately disciplined. Lastly, I want to touch on is I want to encourage the committee to consider SOTs and giving the SOTs more power.
You are at 2 minutes if you want to wrap that up.
Oh, thank you. So give the SOTs more power, give them more decision-making abilities. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next in Las Vegas.
Yesenia Gonzalez for the record, YESENIA GONZALES. Again, accountability. AB 195 was passed, and unfortunately, there's a lot of discrepancies when it comes to that. We have IEPs that are not able to be translated on time, and there is a lack of manpower due to it. I have spoken with Mr. Ignacio Ruiz, who's been amazing throughout this whole process in trying to get this bill to be more noticed throughout the district, more accountability, but there's a lack of manpower, interpretation services as well. These schools in CCSD are not aware that this law is in place. You don't see it posted on their website as it is supposed to be on there. So that's a very huge discrepancy. Another thing too, the fingerprinting process. I've been asked to be part of Dads in Schools. I've already applied. I've been approved, but the fingerprinting process is taking a long toll. By the time that this does come back and I am approved, the school year may be already over. So I was told that there is again, another lack of manpower in that. And I would just wish that there could be something done to help CCSD in regards to having that process just a little faster. And in regards to another thing, the restorative justice, it's really disheartening when, for example, what I mentioned with my son that was attacked in 2021, my son's case went directly to the harbor because the harbor was not aware that there was evidence that showed my son in video being attacked. The DA's office lost my son's evidence 3 times. CCSD PD, Wendy is her name, she had to go down there physically 3 times. So that delayed my son's case in getting some sort of justice, some sort of help for this individual who was also part of the foster system. If this individual needed the help, this was something that was a barrier in the process. So I'm not sure if that's something that, in regards to that,
And
how
you-
can we go about helping?
You were at
Thank
2
you.
minutes. Thank you. Okay. BPS, is there anyone on the phone lines for public comment?
Callers, if you would like to provide public comment, please press star 9 to take your place in the queue. Chair, there are no callers choosing to provide public comment at this time.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that concludes our meeting. Our next meeting will be Tuesday, March 21st at 1:30, and we are adjourned. Good job.